Hello, everyone.
We welcome you all to Splendor 2021. Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you on behalf of our Silre family to our virtual, inclusive international conference on future of education, Splendor 2021. We hope you and your dear ones are safe and healthy in these testing times. I'm Deepta Padmanabhan, Director of Facilitation at Silre. It gives me immense pleasure to have the opportunity to host this very insightful evening. And we have here with us our sign language interpreter, Mr. Keshavan A., who works for the NGO Deaf Enable Foundation. He has been an interpreter for the State Legislative Assembly, Election Commission of India, and also for state rural local body elections. Welcome, sir.
Hello, one and all. I am Yug Pachapurkar, and I will be your co-MC for this evening. I would like to take this opportunity and further introduce co-MC Deepta ma'am. Deepta is a multi-talented and passionate educationist who loves working with children. She is an award-winning academic dancer, singer, and writer who is also a vivid reader. She is a mother of two and loves to travel and spend quality time with her family during her leisure time.
Thanks, Yug. Now it's time for you all to get to know more about Yug. Yug is an avid reader who reads anything and everything that comes his way. He is also a published author and a public speaking enthusiast. His favorite evening scenario is to be left alone with a mound of books in a quiet room where no one disturbs him. He is a 10-year-old ball of fire who is a grade 5 student from Greenwood International School.
Thank you, Deepta ma'am. Now, we are sure that you all share the same level of excitement and enthusiasm as we do for the upcoming events of the day. I promise there will be a little something for everyone to look forward to in the course of the following 3 days, including fireside chats, a book reading, interesting opinions from lots of different personalities, and even a movie screening, so I've heard. If you haven't already, please check out the agenda from our website.
Silver Splendor brings together exceptional educators, researchers, and enthusiasts for empowering synergetic collaborations to increase reach, impact, and implementation of creative breakthrough ideas. We welcome you to be a part of these conversations and take your learnings forward to create an impact. We would like to thank our main sponsors and partners for making this happen. Efficacy, a biostatistics and statistical programming service provider, and Bluebell Schools for Integrated Learning, an initiative of the Bluebells Group of Schools, a premier education provider in Gurugram. Shout out to the MVJ Group of Institutions for sponsoring and partnering with us, and Luvia Bakery for all the goodies.
Thanks to partners Jyoti Nivas Autonomous College for supporting us in many ways, Brightside Foundation and Ondide. Special mention to all our supporters, Yugi Sethu, Hari Iyer, Vasudevan Alasingachar, Damodaran Raja Lingam, Arun Padmanabhan, and families of the Silre team for supporting us.
Also, please do visit the sponsor booths every day as new QR codes are updated daily. Visit all and find 3 QR codes for the day, click on them and scan to collect the words of the day. Make one catchphrase with all the 3 words and send it to splendor@silre.com before 11:59 p.m. each day. The first 5 entries and top 2 catchphrases will win a gift coupon worth rupees 500 each.
And now, without further ado, I would like to call upon two of the most important personalities at Silray to light the lamp and begin the conference. First, the calm and poised Miss Ananthi Balakrishnan, who founded Silray in 2013 because of her strong dislike for conventional methods of learning. And second, Miss Aparna Bhaskar, the co-founder of Silray, who's a perfectionist, multitasker, and speed reader all rolled into one. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Ms. Anandi and Ms. Aparna. Before we start with today's events for the evening, I would like to briefly go through the do's and don'ts with you all. Please be respectful. Let's collaborate over ideas. Please share your ideas, but do not disrupt the meetings. Please use the raise hand option and please do not unmute when the conference is ongoing. Please interact and ask questions if you have any, and let's make the most of this. Thank you. Yog, I think we have spoken enough about us. Don't you think it's time for us to get to know our audience?
Definitely, I think so too.
Great. Hello, everyone. We have a fun poll waiting for you all. Please click on the link from the chat box or scan the QR code and answer the questions given so that we get to know more about you all. The link will take you to the browser. Please answer the questions and come back again to Zoom.
Are you ready for the first question? Great. Question 1. Are you a student, parent, educator, or just a general audience?
Yes. I think we have a poll here.
All those messaging their answers in the chat, please do so in the poll instead. Wow, we have a very diverse audience.
Yes, it's great to see people from all genres. Okay, now let's go on to our second question. Are you an early bird or a night hawk? We have a tough competition there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so many early birds. Well, the Nighthawks, take this as a great start to your long night.
As for the early birds, don't worry, the sessions are stacked for the evening. We are sure you all be amazed at how much this evening offers us.
Now, please take a minute and let us know what you are looking for the most in this conference. This will be your third and last question for now. Great. Thank you one and all for participating in the poll and letting us know what you think. I hope you all will have a lot of takeaways from today's evening.
And now we have our other co-founder of Silray, whose bright and cheerful personality as well as her passion for fun games and activities make her a very popular facilitator at Silray. She believes that drama and life skills are essential in the holistic learning of children and wears multiple hats at Silray. She takes pride as a contributor to the building blocks of Silray, an open learning space that has impacted more than 13,000 children so far. Presenting Gauri Hari, an educationist who appreciates the uniqueness of each child, for delivering the opening remarks for this session.
Thank you, Yug. Namaste. Welcome to Silray's Splendor 2021, the virtual inclusive international conference on the future of education. I am Gauri, co-founder of Silray Learning Spaces. We say in India, Vasudhaiva Kutumpakam, Yadum Ure Yavarum Kelir, which simply means the whole world is a family. Now that my family is here, I want to share my story, the journey as an educator. 11 years ago, when I dropped my elder son abroad for studies, I realized something. I was dropping an 18-year-old with no exposure to traveling abroad, let alone living there. And the university said, it's up to the students to make use of the opportunities there. At that time, as a parent, I had three questions in my mind. Did I give tools to my child to survive in an unknown world? Did I continuously bombard him with information without reflection on his takeaways? How relevant were academics to his real world? My son did well, but did I? This reflection led me to realize that we need to expose our children to life skills as early as possible. And this inspired me to become an educator, to impact young children. So I did the Train the Trainer course, became passionate trainer and an enthusiastic facilitator. When I started working with children, I met Anandi, a young software engineer who was passionate about learning and had a great vision for the future of education. We worked together to find our own methodology. We started Silray Learning Spaces. Silray is learning in Lojban language, said Anandi. We thought stories are engaging for children. So I enrolled myself in a professional storytelling academy. From our personal experiences, we found all of academics was not relevant to the real world, and we needed different skills to survive. Hence, we wanted to make what is learned relevant and learning available to all. So our motto became making learning engaging, relevant, and available. Our first session was in a fun activity space. We had gone all prepared to have fun with kids, but guess how many turned up? None. Then we went around Bangalore city, met amazing open-minded people who gave us platform to explore at our own pace to try out our methodology. We tried various things, did reflections, and tweaked our sessions at a fast pace. Once on a Republic Day, we had to introduce the topic of rights and duties to young children. We decided to play a game called Traffic. There were 20 kids. We asked them to go around the room, simulating a road scene. There was utter chaos. Then we gave them the traffic rules, order restored. So the children experienced that not rules are not always meant to be restrictive, but for safety too. And I told them the story of a fish and a bird who wanted to explore freedom by exchanging places. Then they realized not all thoughts on freedom are danger free. A quick way to help them make informed decisions. And we learned that teaching civics through games and stories was more effective than reading textbooks on them. Then we explored multidisciplinary sessions like learning geography through cooking, physics through toy making. It was well received. Then my best friend Aparna joined us and more people too. Now we had enough people to spread our message across the city. Now we wanted to include more children in the journey as our approach was working. So we started the Giving Tree, a non-profit language initiative for government school children. We learned that structured education delivers information as if learners are equal, but treats them differently based on their learning styles and interests. We were beginning to make a difference by giving learners a choice, by making them feel included. Do you have a good word to make others feel happy? Okay. Then we explored continuous engagement with the same children, theater clubs, life clubs, speaker club. Wanted to share a few experiences here. When Danny joined our theater sessions, his father said, "Ma'am, my son doesn't open up, and that's why I put him in theater." Danny was, of course, shy, but slowly he became comfortable at Silray because we don't give negative feedback or force children. Danny worked hard to try all the activities and talk to his peers, but refused to perform in the finale out of fear. So after watching a few rehearsals, he said, "Okay, but I'll tell only short dialogues." So I said, "Okay." The finale came and everybody was anxious, especially Danny's father. The show started. Danny said a few, forgot a few. I was happy. He was very happy, but his father was disappointed. So I told the father, "Sir, Danny was hesitant to come on stage first, but he said a few dialogues in the end. That's a great progress. If you want him to be bold, then treat him like he's capable of being one. That helps." We at Silray learn to appreciate every little step the child takes, and some children take it a little further. Like Praveen in the first theater session told me, "I'm more of a science person, just trying to explore theater and definitely not comfortable dancing." Our drama sessions have drama games that are doable and fun. He chose to try some, leave some, and soon found himself exploring and realizing he was more than he thought he was. And he went on to be recognized as the best actor in the theater festival. And he danced and loved the role. And the next day, the mother came and said, "Praveen doesn't hesitate to explore in other subjects too." Slowly, we had impacted from 0 to 13 plus thousand children. It has been a fulfilling decade-long journey. Then we moved on to adults. Then came pandemic. Luckily, we were quick to adapt. We went virtual, connected globally, went beyond classrooms with augmented tools, had uninterrupted conversations as learning became possible to everyone, everywhere, at all times. Going virtual, I remember something interesting when we first shifted online. During one of those finales, we had for children, one actor's whisper from Bengaluru was heard by children from Bahrain, Singapore, Chennai, Ghaziabad. That was amazing. It was an Akbar Birbal story. And Birbal went, "Psst, Jahapana, I want to tell you something in private." And Akbar bent down from Bahrain, some 3,000 kilometers from Birbal, and whispered, "Yes, go ahead, Birbal." And that whisper was heard all over. And we also changed the backgrounds according to wherever Akbar and Birbal went. I know we can't beat the in-person stage feel, but we were creative and used technology to our advantage. Now, as children joined from different countries, they learned different accents, different culture, felt being part of a global village. Now we got more confident as we were still decently on track with our motto of making learning engaging, relevant, and available. Then to reach more people to discuss pandemic triggered issues, we started The education is changing. Webinar series, the response was good. And that led to Silray's Splendor 2021, the virtual inclusive international conference on the future of education. So this platform is to discuss how we can redesign the future of education with all the learnings we've had and make it more meaningful and enjoyable for the learner because the education landscape is changing. Learners are no longer going to learn from just teachers, but from the whole world. So, one way to go about the future of education is to do drama, assign a role to every one of us. The learner can take the driver's role, decide his destination, navigate his way through with information on the net, Google Map, get excited about new things that come up. For that, educators need to take up the support role, transform that knowledge to real world applications, and be the educator we always wanted to have. Cheer the driver, acknowledge that each driver is different. He could, for example, be like the hare in the famous hare and the tortoise story, have the skill but take breaks at the wrong time. Or he could be the tortoise having better attitude than skill. Educator has to help the driver with reflections and not overload with information. Now, among the educators, we need movers and shakers to take up the leadership role and take the first few steps. For that, we have many amazing speakers in Splendor. They jumped on board with ease, no hesitation, showing the dedication to transform the education landscape. And we need change makers. For that, we have our sponsors, Efficacy Life Science Analytics, the Bluebell School, MVJ institutions. Of course, we all have to play more than double roles to continue conversations, collaborations, and to create special interest groups that's beyond Splendor. Now, what invention do you want to see in future? This interest and vigor we have shown now in this conference, if carried out in the education field as well, would be a great start. Of course, challenges are going to be there. Um, uh, Challenges are going to be there, but let's enjoy the process. As the Bhagavad Gita says, Karmanye vadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma pale heturpur mate sangochava karmani. Do your best, don't get attached to the outcome. Finally, let's have a toast for every child in this world. And our journey continues with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gauri, for sharing your experiences and Silray's inspiring story with us. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, we have our keynote on sustainability in education.
What? Sustainability in education? I've heard sustainability in the environment, sustainability in corporate processes, and sustainability in the stock market. But sustainability in education? That's something new.
Exactly, Yug. This looks like the perfect keynote that we can have. Let's not rake up our brains too much because we have an expert here with us who can guide us through this topic. Presenting Dr. Harini Nagendra. Dr. Harini Nagendra is an ecologist, lead and professor of sustainability at Azim Premji University. For her interdisciplinary research and practice, she has received a number of awards, including the 2009 Cozzarelli Prize from the US National Academy of Sciences, the 2013 Elinor Ostrom Senior Scholar Award, and the 2017 Clarivate Web of Science Award. Her publications include the books Nature in the City, Bengaluru in the Present, Past, and Future, and Cities and Canopies, Trees in Indian Cities. Dr. Harini Nagendra writes a monthly column, The Green Goblin, in the Deccan Herald newspaper, and she is a well-known public speaker and writer on issues of urban sustainability in India. We welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here at this conference, and I'm really looking forward to talking to all the participants. It's a Bangalore is raining, so let's start with this. I think many of you are coming in from different parts, at least of Bangalore, but maybe also other cities which are also raining. We see that this is one of the wettest years that we have had in a very long time. And what this tells us at a time when we have just finished the Conference of Parties event on climate change, the international meeting that was held in Glasgow very recently, tells us that climate change and issues of sustainability are not future issues. You know, Delhi schools were closed for an entire week because of pollution last week, right? Children are not able to breathe. Older people are not able to breathe and going into hospitals with problems. Because of climate change, flooding, we have other issues. Because of heat waves, we have issues. Because human beings have interfered with nature, we have problems like the COVID crisis, which set us all back by about 2 years, the whole world. So what I'm trying to say is sustainability is such an urgent problem that we are not able to deal with sustainability with the rest of the world without solving sustainability. People used to say that India is a developing country, need to first attend to issues of development, poverty alleviation, getting India developed. Then we can deal with sustainability, then we can deal with the environment. But I think what we're realizing now is it's all intertwined. We can't deal with education without the environment. We can't deal with breathing properly, having clear lungs and taking a normal breath without the environment. We can't deal with mental health issues, hanging out with our loved ones like we used to in this environment because of the things we have done. So sustainability is very urgent. On the other hand, we are not able to deal with sustainability the way we have, the way we should be doing it. We should be on a war footing tackling issues of sustainability everywhere. But we are not because people don't understand this. So why sustainability in education, you are asking? This is why sustainability in education, I think, because we need to let everybody know why we need to deal with sustainability education on a war footing, right? So if somebody can start with my slides, please. Thank you so much. So the next slide. The next slide, please. Yeah. What is sustainability? Now, there are so many different definitions of sustainability, and part of the big problem with this is whose definition do you take? So just let's pause for a few seconds. You tell me what, let's just think about what is your definition of sustainability. Anyone who wants to type into the chat box, please type in what is your definition of sustainability. Banks, for instance, talk about sustainability of loans. And what they mean is, can the person repay? It's completely financial definition of sustainability, right? So different groups talk about sustainability in different ways. And I see Ananthi saying the capacity to be self-sufficient. That's also a very valid definition. Without restriction, another very good one. Anyone else who wants to type in what your definitions of sustainability are? A long-term solution. See, we're getting different things. One is saying you should not destroy anything. One is saying you should be able to be self-sufficient. Another person is saying it's the long-term. And they are all aspects of sustainability. They're all very integral to it. If I think of my definition of sustainability, my way of thinking of it is the health and the well-being of the planet Earth, which is our only planet right now. I mean, Elon Musk may have gone to space, or anybody, Jeff Bezos has gone to space, but the reality is we are on this planet. This is the only planet we have, and we can't all abandon ship, right? So we must act with responsibility, as Padma says, for this planet. So for me, it's the health and well-being of the planet. But what does that planet mean? It means everybody on it. It means the people, it means the animals, it means the plants. And it means making sure that they are imperishable. Shailen, you're absolutely right. So this is a very broad definition of sustainability. But, look at, again, words are very important in education. We're all using different words. We all mean something similar. So we need to get at this a little more if we want to get into education. Can we change the next slide? Yeah. So for instance, you have people who ask questions like these, and these are different thoughts that people have. I asked you to define sustainability. But if you talk about questions about sustainability, that people have. Some people say is technology a solution to sustainability. Some people feel like you have the right app, you can get everybody to use public transport, and that's more sustainable. Others feel no, technology always is bad for sustainability because, look at smartphones, for instance, you have to mine minerals for that, you destroy the earth, and so technology is not good for sustainability. Some say we must conserve pristine nature. Okay, pristine nature as in forests which don't have any people in them. Throw the people out of the forest, protect the wildlife. That's the only way, because people are harmful. Others say no, if you have Adivasi communities, indigenous forest communities, they are part of the forest. Just like an animal or a plant is part of the forest, these people are part of the forest. It's us people who are in cities who should be out of the forest, but Adivasi communities should be allowed to be in the forest. Then, which is right? Each has a different perspective. The thing is, your assumptions in there are different. Either you say human beings are bad, or you think all human beings are not the same. Or, people might say, stop extracting groundwater. Bore wells are bad. Technology is bad. Others might say it's because of the bore wells that India's green revolution happened. It's because of that we feed our people. And so if we don't extract water from the bore wells, how are we going to drink? How are we going to grow our crops? We have to extract from bore wells. I'm just giving you examples of common sustainability debates to tell you that at the back of this debate is an underlying question that we are all thinking about from each other's point of view. So if we can go to the next question. Sita, I see you pointed in the chat box a very important definition, which is the standard definition of sustainability in the Stockholm conference, in the Rio conference, when it was first defined at a global scale. It's development that meets the needs of the present generation. Okay, so which is why we're talking about, and this is sustainable development. This is not sustainability, but it's the kind of development which means that present generations can move out of poverty, have a good life, but in their moving out of poverty and developing good life for themselves, you don't destroy the environment to the point that our children and our grandchildren cannot do the same, right? So that's another definition of sustainable development. But again, when I come back to education, well, the problem that happens is when we're trying to break this down into actionable pieces. What do we mean by this? Each of us means different things. And that is really frames. And so what I mean by a frame is, think of if you were looking at the world through spectacles, and one of you had red colored frames, you had blue colored frames, one of you had green colored frames. You'd all see the same world differently because you are emphasizing certain things. You are not looking at certain things. So the frames, similarly, all of us have mental frames when we view the world, when we use sustainability. And you can see that in the different things. Some of you are looking at long-term solutions. Some of you are looking about action with responsibility. One is looking at imperishability. Somebody is looking at coexistence. Somebody is looking at the essence of life, as Suju is saying. These are all we are all using different frames. So the first thing in sustainability definition, education, is what are the frames we should use? And next slide. Yeah. So the most common framing you will see is what you call a three-legged stool. They will say sustainability has three components. You have the economic component. You need to be financially sustainable. You have the ecological component. You should not destroy ecology and the environment. And you need to be socially sensitive. So you should look at social components. But it seems like it's A plus B plus C. Let's get the economics right. Let's get the ecology right. Let's get the societal part right. And we will be sustainable. That fails because these are independent things. I mean, they treat them as independent and you can't add them up. They're actually all integrated part of the same web. So we at Azim Premji University, which is where I am from, we run a very popular online sustainability education course. And we prefer a different framing. We call it the 3 Fs of sustainability. So can we move to the next? Can you come down? Yeah. So we have 3 Fs, and I'll explain these in greater detail. Finitude, fairness, fragility. Okay, so for now, Please just remember these 3 words and I'll go into them. Can I have the next slide? Next slide, please. Yeah. Can you just scroll down one more? Yeah. Right. No, up. Yeah. So what is finitude? See, we tend to think that you look at any economics discussions. Is India's economy doing well? Yes or no? Because we are defining economy doing well as you have 8% growth in GDP. Every year, if you want an 8% growth in your GDP, but your planet is finite. There are more people, we are all consuming more, and we want more economic growth, but you don't have more water. You don't have more oxygen. You have more cars that pollute. You have more industries that pollute our rivers. Right? So we can't have infinite growth, either economic growth or population growth or growth of the resources we consume, how many clothes we buy, how many expensive holidays we take, how much water we consume, because our planet is finite. So that's why finitude. Okay? And this is very obvious for some kinds of things. We know that we'll run out of coal. We'll run out of natural gas. Okay? We'll run out of fresh water at some point. But we are not so sure about things like land. So I give you an example. We are talking about renewable energy. We say India will keep growing. We move to solar energy. But solar batteries require land to put those batteries on. If you go to places like Pavgada, which is in the border of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, you will see that there are large areas of solar in dry land. And what that does is it increases the heat because solar, the glass is there, it reflects heat. And so what happens is the farmers around, their crops are getting affected by solar. So solar, it's not like India can continue to grow. We just need to move from coal to solar. Solar also has finitude problems. Solar batteries, electric cars. Let's take electric cars. Okay, India wants to move to electric cars, and we should. But if we want to keep growing the number of electric cars we have, beyond the point, we are not going to have the minerals that are required to run the electric cars. So everything is a finite resource, and the world is finite. We can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. Okay? So that's the first part of sustainability that we must think of. Next slide, please. The second is you can't think of finitude without fairness, because let's say Bangalore has a drought. I know it's difficult to think of Bangalore as a drought now because it's raining everywhere. But it was true that in the summer last year we were thinking about where the water is coming from. Right? So if you say Bangalore is running out of water, who is running out of water? Most of us in this conference, we can buy bottled water. We can buy tankers. Maybe household budget will pinch a little bit. Tankers will become instead of 750 rupees, 1000 rupees, 1500 rupees. But we can buy a tank. What about somebody in the slum? They will run out of water. So when we say who is the resource finite for? It's not finite for the wealthy. It is finite for the poor. So if you don't think of fairness, you can't understand sustainability. Right? Next slide. Come down, please. Yeah. So there are two parts of it. You remember there was people who said future generations, and two people talked about that in the definition. So one component of fairness is within this same generation. Like I said, people who live in apartments as opposed to people who live in slums. The second is people of the future generations, children who have not been born, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. If the rivers dry, if there is no Kaveri because we have used all the water of the Kaveri, what will they drink? If there is no clean air because we have destroyed all the trees around, what will they breathe? So it's also fairness between generations. While this generation has to improve, we can't affect the lives of future generations. So there's two parts of fairness. And if I can have the next slide, look at this. If if India's land was divided by India's wealth, 1% of India would own 49% of our land. And 50% of our people would be living on 4.5%, a tiny fraction of land. You see the unfairness here. It's so obvious. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. Every year it gets worse. The global statistics are the same. So you can't think of sustainability without thinking about fairness. Fairness is a part of sustainability, right? We can't think of economic growth without saying who gets the economic growth. Zomato shares are doing really well, but delivery boys in Zomato are getting squeezed constantly. They are the ones who have accidents, who don't earn money, so that people who have invested in Zomato on the stock market can do it. So there's a fairness question. Next slide, please. Yeah, the rich are getting richer at a faster pace. And you'll see that India is one of the most unequal countries in terms of economic wealth. Next slide. And the third F, what is fragility? Fragility just means that things are interconnected. And what that means is, for instance, let's say a river can take waste from a small village and it can naturally regenerate itself. But the small village grows into large Bengaluru. And Bengaluru sends all of its sewage into the lakes and rivers. They will collapse. Or Delhi, the Yamuna will collapse. So things are interconnected, and because of that, our social impacts feed into ecology. Ecology feeds into social impacts. Right? So things are interconnected, and therefore, if that's what you think about when you think of fragility. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. And this is why we have issues like Belandur Lake. Belandur Lake, this is a good example. It froths every year because so much from industries, from medical, hospitals, from apartments, everything goes into Belandur Lake. The froth comes, people get affected, and yet large, expensive apartments continue to be built on the side of Belandur Lake. So the social and the ecological is very interconnected. And just by building better drainage systems or cleaning up Belandur Lake once, we will not fix this problem. We have to think of it as a system, think of all the connections, and then fix the location of the industry. Make sure that the apartments clean their own water. Make sure that the lakes that feed Belandur are connected. Make sure that the water that goes out of Belandur is well treated. Make sure that the villages around Belandur, the children there get clean drinking water. That connection is part of sustainability. Next slide. Yeah. So sustainability has 3 Fs: finitude, fairness, fragility. Now, what people don't realize is all of these can't be addressed at the same time. Because unfortunately, what happens is, if you try and address one, you will have a problem with the other. Take an example of, let's say, a lake where a slum has taken up a place on the lake and part of the lake bed is taken up by the slum. Or an apartment has built on the drain of the lake. To protect the lake, you must remove the apartment or remove the slum. But that impacts fairness. Because those are people, they built those areas, they didn't know that they were not supposed to build there. It was not their fault. So you ruin people's lives to protect the lake. This is a challenge we have very often. You must, you to go forward on one, you slide back on one. But the thing is, we must acknowledge this and find ways to work with it together. So can you find alternate places for the people who have built on the lake bed and compensate them in some way for it, right? So the reason to be transparent about these 3 F's is, if we don't, we say we are moving forward in sustainability, but we don't acknowledge the problem. And this is something you will see in the newspaper often. Some protected area is done very well because it's thrown out people. One group will say that. Another newspaper will report saying human rights violation. The Adivasi communities have been thrown out of the park because their frames are different. What we are saying is, put the same frames, make it clear, and then you can find a resolution. If it's hidden in the back of our heads, we'll never find a solution. Okay? So this framing of the 3 F's, we have taught now for about the past 6 years, I think, to 12 different cohorts. There are people from media, there are school and college students, there are corporate workers, there are government people, there are journalists, there are homemakers, there are people working on solid waste management, people working with NGOs. So many people have benefited from this kind of way of thinking of framing, and they tell us that this sustainability education has been very valuable. Next slide, please. This helps us understand a tug of war between, for instance, should India go along the path of economic growth? Should India look at conservation? Should India go at in terms of social justice? It is a tug of war, and this is why it's difficult to solve. Very often we think very simply that, look, sustainability is just about teaching people that environment is important. It's not just that. It's really sometimes a difficult choice one has to make on which direction do we move. Okay. Next slide. Now, how do we move from such an understanding to action? Because why are we doing sustainability education? Because we want some change to be happen on the ground. Most discussions of sustainability action are very simplistic, aimed at the individual. You should ride a cycle. You should plant a tree. You should compost your garbage. You should stop drinking bottled drinks. You should take a cloth bag to the market instead of plastic bags. But if we followed this, all of us followed this, will the world change? No. 90 companies are estimated to have caused 2/3 of global warming. 90 companies. If we all took a plastic bag to the market, cloth bags to the market, we will reduce 3% of Bangalore's trash, maybe even less. So we should not take plastic. We should plant trees. We should compost our trash. But we need to go beyond individual action to try and compel the companies to change, to make government put regulations on the companies. So we have to go beyond individual to thinking of systems, to thinking at larger scales, to think of communities. So sustainability education should really take on the task of addressing action. I'll give you one very good example. For instance, there's a small town in Tamil Nadu where the district collector worked with a college, and what the girls in the college did was, for 1 month, everything that they got that was plastic, they put in a box. Lays, Kurkure, Coke, Pepsi, chocolate or Cadbury's, whatever it is. And they put all of this in a box, and then they found that 3 companies contributed most of the wrapping. They put all the wrappers in a box and they mailed them to the companies, and they said, we like your products very much. We like eating them, but this is too much plastic for us. Can you please, we are children, we want to save the planet. Can you please do something to improve the packaging? Media covered this very widely. The companies did not respond, but think if all the colleges across India did it together, then what will happen? Then you're going beyond the individual and forcing the companies to act, right? So we need to find education in ways that takes us beyond the individual to the community. Now, coming to sustainability education at the India level, where does this go into school curriculum? We, again at Azim Premji University, we did a study of the high school curriculum, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. What we found is, like I said, climate change, biodiversity loss, air pollution are what we call existential issues. Air pollution made Delhi schools close for 1 week. I recently heard from somebody doing air pollution studies on Bombay that Bombay was more polluted than Delhi last week. We don't hear about that. Bombay schools haven't closed. But children in Bombay are having health breathing problems. So these are things that children should be learning about. But our science curriculum is outdated and we don't really learn about any of these things. We learn about very outdated concepts. Even in terms of climate science, what we learn is 5, 6, 10 years out of date. The social sciences curriculum is better. It's a little more integrated. But what we found was the best chance to connect to students emotionally and make them understand is literature and Indian languages. A good poem by a Hindi poet or a Marathi poet or an Odia poet or a Kannada poet. That gives you a connection in a way that you can read all the science, but it will not make you want to act. So humanities, painting, art, outreach, these are the ways to connect with children that we need to do. And in fact, SILRE is really doing a lot of very innovative things out there to help children connect to sustainability education. So this is where we are looking at. So next slide. I want to give you 2 examples and I'll conclude. One is a booklet that we wrote for Pratham books. And this has now been translated into 6 languages. And it will be slowly translated into more different languages. It's a very simple book. It's called So Many Leaves. And can you move to the next? It gives you, this is a slide from this. It talks about from a huge banana leaf to a very tiny tamarind leaf, which is smaller than my fingernail. You know, how do we look at the leaves around us? Something we have always seen, we don't pay attention to. Some leaves are hairy. Some leaves are smooth. Some leaves are pokey. Some leaves are soft. Some leaves are huge. Some are tiny. Some are bitter. Some are sweet. Right? So with this, teachers can teach physics. Why are leaves hairy and why are not? Chemistry. Why are they bitter? Why are they sweet? Ecology and evolution. Why do some leaves have thorns so that goats don't eat them? Why are some leaves long and thorny to preserve water? So you understand about transpiration, right? In fact, I see some people are interested. Pratham Books has this on Story Weaver. So it's online, it's free. Any school around the world can access all the books on Pratham Story Weaver. And you should do this if you haven't, because there's some fantastic books on sustainability there. So the next slide. A second initiative we did was to look at Gundutops, which are these wooded groves, which used to be across Karnataka. Now many of them have disappeared. So we wrote a small story, my colleague Seema Mundoli and I, the previous book and this. This was also published by Azim Premji University. It's bilingual. It is Kannada and it's English. And it's very simple. We just talk about a tree meeting a woman. Lakshmamma was a village woman. She sits down next to Maranna, who's a tree, and they talk about how the village has changed. We were able to print 6,500 copies, which have gone to all rural schools across Karnataka. Right? So across Karnataka, 6,500 panchayat schools have the book, have a little teaching booklet, so teachers can take students into the grove and do activities with them. Look at the birds, look at the trees. Ask your grandparents if they cooked with any of these leaves. Okay, find out if there are any gods in these trees. If there are gods, what are the stories of your village gods? Were there lakes around next to these trees? Have they disappeared? Can you restore these? Can you plant new trees? And now the Karnataka government is working to see if there's a Mahatma Gandhi rural employment scheme. Can that be used for Gundutop restoration? So that these kinds of village groves next to village schools can come up across Karnataka. And this is the kind of sustainability education we think we need. It addresses finitude, it addresses fairness, it addresses fragility, but through art, through science, through social science, and most importantly, through joy. Because sustainability, and that's my last point, sustainability otherwise can be a very sad and dismal and joyless thing. Climate change, biodiversity, air pollution, we will all die in a few years, the world is going to be, it can paralyze you. We have to make it joyful. If you make it joyful, we can act and we can be the change that we want to see. So with that, thank you, Anandi, for linking to the book. Please go and read it and share it with other people. Remember, it's there in multiple languages also. And I will stop here, and any questions, if there is time, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Harini Nagendra, for a great session. Now let's open the floor for questions. Sherlyn Sheba says, what are some immediate areas in which work can start?
The best area that I can think of is to find out what your locality needs. Some places need trees. Some places need garbage collection. Some places need better public transport. And when you to find out what your area needs, it's very important to find out what do the poor in your area need. So go outside. I mean, not just your apartment. We tend to talk to people like us, but I think India is mixed enough that you will see this inequality anywhere. So what do different kinds of people need? Make that list and start with something that is easy to fix. Again, I'm coming back to the joy example. We can always start with something very difficult to fix. We lose motivation. We all must have our little daily wins. So start with something easy. One thing I found is if you talk to your local corporator or MLA and you identify tree planting drives, they're usually willing to do it. Okay? Or recycling drives, they're usually willing to do it because it's easy. It doesn't cost anybody anything. If you start with removing encroachments from a lake, it's a very difficult task. So what do you need in your area and what is easy to start with? Start there. Then you get to know people and then you move on to the bigger things.
So yes, I think there is one more question from Fatima Taskin. How would addressing sustainability through education impact the world at large and also individuals?
Very important question. I think it's the issue of transforming mindsets that I was talking about. We are not giving sustainability the first place in our education system. Still, physics, chemistry, maths, biology have first place. And it's not that they are not important. I think what I'm seeing is in the next 5 years, if we haven't got sustainability fixed, we can't even have schools running. Schools will be flooded or air pollution will be there. These are existential challenges. So sustainability through education must first tell people that these are the most important things. In the next 10, 20 years, if we don't train all our children to address this and all our adults, we're not going to have a world that is livable for everyone.
Yes. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time. It was a very thought-provoking and very insightful session. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Deepta ma'am, what word comes to your mind when I say inclusion?
For everyone.
Hey, that's cool.
How about you, Yug?
When I hear inclusion, I always think available for all.
Hey, great. I guess we all have our own understanding of inclusion. Would you want to check what our audience think about inclusion?
Sure, that sounds fun. Hello, folks. We have a link to a word cloud waiting for you in the chat. Please click on the link and then enter your thoughts about inclusion and what comes to your mind when you hear the word.
So the link is available in the chat. Okay, for all.
Together, for everyone. Acceptance.
Yeah, that's a great take.
Informative. Very nice.
Okay.
Wow, we have a lot of answers here.
So we also have answers in the chat box. Accessibility to all, equal access. Okay. Great.
No bias. Very good way of looking at it.
Thank you, audience, for participating in the poll. I think this is going to be one great topic. So our next event, the much awaited fireside chat, will explore more on this. And for this event, we have two great guests with us. Our first guest, Dr. Akai Padmashali, is an Indian transgender social activist. Her journey is one of courage and determination. She is the founder of the organization Vandade, which means convergence in Kannada. She is an Ashoka Fellow and has received the Rajyotsava Prashasti, the second highest civilian award of Karnataka. We welcome you, ma'am.
In conversation with Dr. Akkai Padmashali, we have Miss Adhidya S.R., who is a documentary filmmaker working as a creative producer at Neelam Social, a digital channel of the revolutionary filmmaker Paranjit. The platform is looked upon as a media movement that delves into gender and anti-Castro politics. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. So, hello, ma'am. I'd like to begin with, as someone from the margins, I thoroughly understand the importance and the impact that education has on one. And I would like you to tell me the impact of education among trans community.
Okay, ma'am, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, now better.
Okay.
Ma'am, do I repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. As someone from the margins, I understand the importance and the impact that education has on an individual. So I would like to know your perspective on the impact that education could create among the trans community.
Should I
Yeah, I'll
respond?
just, yes, please.
Should I respond to that?
Yes, Sakai ma'am.
Yeah. I think the question what I understood the importance of education understanding by the transgender community. I think for me that becomes secondary. I think as the so-called matured society, the knowledgeable society, the society with so much of dominance and the concept of majoritarian is deciding for minorities, deciding the notion of what exactly education means to all of us. I think, very frankly speaking, being part of this conference, I think the participants and the members or organizers, whoever that could be, I think we are not really much literated. We are really not much educated. I think we cannot decide for the other section of society's education context. Why I say this from a context of the recent, the national education policy, which has really stripped us in many, many ways of distracting what exactly the oppressed and socially excluded group wants. When I speak for India, India is known for its India is known for its culture, tradition, religion, the amount of discrimination on the grounds of caste, class, religion, sexuality, and gender, which is really we are not taught in the process of how do we get educated enough. But I feel sad, but I feel disappointed when my parents or my society says that we cannot enter inside a Dalit community's house or a Dalit family's house. We are not supposed to touch them. We are not supposed to drink water in their houses, not to sit next to them, not to share beds, not to say share any of the stuff. I think this is what are we talking about the education system? I think what is happening to my system of education, if you ask me in that context, my opinion, working with the universities, working with colleges, working with schools, working with different sectors of society from the education point of view, be it the formal sector or the informal sector, I feel so disappointed again that no teachers are educated enough about the social burning issues. I think the texts that we always teach to our kids, with the texts which we teach to our students, the texts which we teach to our youngsters, I think what is the importance of education? What is the morality of the education? What are we as teachers? Are we good enough to train and understand the issues of whatever that I just mentioned? I think this is the whole context of the country's status. And if you just jump into the sector of the sexuality and the gender is concerned, how many of us sitting in the room, sitting in the world, are really open to speak about the politics of sexuality and gender? How do we understand the feelings of a child? Be it from the psychological perspective, from the emotion perspective, from the family perspective, from the social construct perspective, I think whatever that happens, we are being judged by the notion of society. We are being really disturbed with the notion of society's social construct. I think in this way, even today in 21st century, we are in 2021 year or the 21st year, very unfortunate that the system of education has really not changed. I think the global perspective of education has much, much, much more that needs to be done. I feel so happy to be part of Silrace, this conference, and this is an international conference. I think it is thoughts of similar thinking people to get together to understand what is this education are we speaking about. I think with this journey, I would like to be here as a learner, as a listener, than an educator. I also, being a dropout from the School of 10th Standard Mathematics, failed. Understanding and struggling with my own identity. I think it took almost 25 years. I was supposed to enjoy my life. I did not do enjoy my life. This notion of how to educate the larger society, but very unfortunate that still we are struggling with discrimination Still we are struggling with acceptance. Still we are struggling with social exclusion. With the point of last, I wanted to say the National Council for Educational Research and Training, the NCERT, which had brought its manual under its website, which clearly said to understand to its teachers under the government program, to be the private and the government education institutions, to train the teachers on what exactly is about the behavioral change, the sex, gender, sexuality's basic concepts. If as a teacher, if you're really closed your eyes, it's so difficult to nurture our coming generation, especially the children. And many times we face discrimination because children laugh at us. And the parents says that we are child kidnappers, which we aren't. I think how do you fight the social combat, the social stigma against one community? I think the NCERT's push towards bringing up the issues of the gender non-conforming, the transgender and sexual minorities was such a huge, great positive move. The next day, it removed from its website, and the question was why, and the response was the transgenders, the gender non-conforming, are from the westernized culture. Now, the whole importance of understanding what is Western, what is Eastern, what is Asian, what is South Asian, I think what is India, what is Egypt, what is Italy, what is United States. We all need to really relook the entire envisioning process of education, the process of understanding the importance of education. If you ask me the direct question, what is education to the transgender community? I think accepting, understanding myself is an education for me than going to read your texts and papers and books. I am done.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more to that.
Thank you, Adhitya SR and Dr. Akkai Padmashali, for a great session. Now, let's open the floor for questions.
Aditya, you can continue if you had more questions.
So Devyani Rathi is asking, do you think technology can help in improving inclusion?
Interesting question to respond. I think the governance which rules the people, the governance which rules the people, and the rulers are having very limited understanding of knowledge on the issues of the most vulnerable and the marginal section. The country has to relook its politics of talking the issues of the most oppressed and socially excluded groups, understanding its culture, tradition, religion, region, the background of the community in its movement. Without understanding it is so difficult for us to speak any sort of inclusion in the so-called the digitalized world. But as an activist, being part of the movement for more than 25, 30 years, I still struggle to use an iPhone touch screen. I do not understand how do I download the apps. I just use my touch screen to operate my messages, my WhatsApp, and to write my email in whatever language I know. If that is my understanding, and even English, whatever I'm speaking today, it is not learned from any sort of vocabulary university. It is just, it's my determination to learn English. Take your dictionary, you refer your language, your wordings, your sentences from Kannada to English, English to Kannada, and you practice it every day 5 to 10 times. That's how you gain the knowledge. And we, as an organization, one day, reaching out to many people across the state, we do this program called mobile education. We do this program called mobile education, and this mobile program called
It is raining heavily, and I think there is a disturbance from Dr. Akkai's end.
Sherlyn, Shiva had asked the question that I would like to address. Can I go ahead?
Yes, yes, ma'am, please.
So she's asked, what would a completely inclusive, oh, I'm sorry, how do we develop empathy towards marginalized? We read, we read a lot. There's a lot of literature out there, and to begin with, read Ambedkar, Annihilation of Caste, and you get all your answers there. There is no new ideas to empathize with the marginalized. To the ideas that you need are already out there. You just need to go look for them.
Yes, very true, ma'am. And we have Dr. Akai back with us. So, ma'am, there's one more question that is from the chat. So, have you seen anything in the last 2 to 3 years that gives us hope that we are on the right direction towards being more inclusive?
I remember the 2009 and 10 when the Bangalore University offered its 1% reservation in all its 52 courses at the Bangalore University. That was a huge, great move in the country. The first university to announce that reservation for transgender people in all 52 courses. But now, giving an opportunity at the very higher level doesn't resolve the problem because many of us are school dropouts. We are dropout at fourth standard, fifth standard. Many people have not gone to school. If you're not passing your 10th standard, how are you going to afford to the second PUC, then completion of degree? Then you need to go for your, PhD level or, whatever university education that we speak about. Without we addressing this basic education system, it was so difficult and it is so difficult that no, the transgender people have occupied these positions yet. You know, I think that is what we are trying to do. I think I should thank the Honorable Supreme Court of 2014 verdict, which recognized the transgender people as equal citizens and ensuring that our education, our employment, our identity shall be a mandated process in public education institution. And this institution has a moral responsibility to ensure that the issues of transgender people shall be taken widely to bring enormous amount of the discussion. But the 20 years of struggle as a movement, as a community, we were struggling that our issue should be inclusive education process, inclusive education curriculum, inclusive education texts that people should speak. But people did not care about the 20 years ago importance. And today people are just talking about the digitalization world. I think if you compare the last 20 years and the current situation, yes, there is a drastic change in people's mind, attitude, education institutions. I think to be very frankly speaking, when I wrote my book in Kannada, Karunegondu Savalu, A Challenge to Sympathy, and it's also named as Akkai, this book, many universities in Karnataka have adopted to their chapters, be it your political party issue, be it your globalization understanding on sexuality and gender, be it your marriage and divorce and sexual relationships and many other aspects of it. I think I feel happy that this education institution is trying to bring that sort of autumn for a discussion to brainstorm its young, I think, their own minds and for the coming generation. I think, yes, I strongly believe that society will change and we need to have hopes, and society also has a certain amount of social responsibility.
Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Aditya, ma'am, you have any other questions to ask?
Yes, I would like to get ma'am's perspective on something. I read about that India had launched a school that provides free education for the people from the trans community. My question right here is, how is isolating them isolating the people who are gender non-conforming or who are gender non-binary is liberating them. I would like to get ma'am's perspective on this. Is that what true liberation is? Because I do not believe I keep isolating them is gonna help. So,
Aditya, your question was really echoing me. I couldn't catch the words what you said. Can you just type me on the chat box?
yes, ma'am.
Maybe you should keep the speaker a little closer to your mouth.
Okay. Uh, am I audible now? Am
Better.
I? Yes, ma'am. So I read about India's launch of a new school that provides free education for the people from the trans community. Now, my question here is, how is isolating and providing free education only to the people of the community is truly liberating? I do not understand it. So I would like to get your perspective on it.
Yeah. I think the education for transgender people taking up in separate manner, I think again I see from a discrimination point of view. As a child, I want to study, I want to pursue, I want to continue my education with all of you. And I want to feel I'm one amongst you. If you say boys separate, girls separate, and gender non-conforming kids are separate, I feel most excluded. I think I will speak about an inclusive education with all sort of gender roles, social constructed so-called roles, breaking the gender stereotype communities. We all need to be together to bring tomorrow's world in certain perception of talking about it is not the question of what is your gender, it is not the question of what is your sexuality. I want to build tomorrow's world from education point of view that we are human beings first and everything next. We need to have the privilege of respecting human beings and their hearts than the gender identities. You know, I think the liberation and the liberal point of view comes from a certain feminist perspective that yes, there should be a sort of inclusive, irrelevant of accepting people's identities. You know, I think to bring that, there's a long struggle. I think organizations like Children, One Day, and many collaborative organizations, it is our fundamental and constitutional and civil and the wholehearted human responsibility to take up this issue at across platforms, from the state to your regional to your national to international levels.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. We thoroughly enjoyed the session and there were a lot of takeaways for all of us. So thank you so much, Dr. Akai and Ms. Aditya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes. Once again, we would like to thank our main sponsors and partners for making this happen. Efficacy, a biostatistics and statistical programming service provider, and Bluebell Schools for integrated learning, an initiative of the Bluebells group of schools, a premier education provider in Gurugram.
Also, please do visit the sponsor booths every day as new QR codes are updated daily. Please visit all to find the 3 QR codes for the day, click on them, and scan to collect the words of the day. Make one catchphrase with all 3 words and send it to splendor@silray.com before 11:59 p.m. each day. The first 5 entries and top 2 catchphrases will win a gift coupon worth rupees 500 each.
Yes. So everyone, how about a fun game next?
Finally, my ears were getting tired. Now this is fun.
I know, right? Anyways, in this game, we will say different words that means hello in a few different languages. You will have to guess what language we are speaking and enter your answer in the chat box. I repeat, please enter your answers in the chat box. Let's begin.
The first word is hola. Correct? It's Spanish.
Yay! Okay, the next word is Vanakkam.
Yup, it's Tamil. Wow, those are lots of responses.
Okay. What's the next word, Yog?
The next word is Namaste. Hindi. Yep, that's correct.
Okay. The next word is Konnichiwa.
Yep, it's Japanese. The next word is Ni hao. Chinese, that's correct. Also known as Mandarin.
Oh. The next word is Namaskara. Yes, it is Kannada.
And the final word is Aloha. Hawaiian, that's correct. Thanks for playing with us. We enjoyed this.
True, languages are indeed fascinating. In fact, next in our agenda, we have the interesting event Conversations on Language, and we have two distinguished guests for this. Our first guest, Ms. Savita Reddy, is the founder of Language Station, which is a global peer-to-peer language learning platform, which connects speakers from across the world. She is the founder of InLingua Bangalore, and she has successfully managed the business for 16 years, developing it to one of the top language training schools in India. She loves sketching, writing, and she conducts motivational talks to students, encouraging them to take up entrepreneurship. Welcome, ma'am.
And our second guest, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari Shankar, is a bilingual poet, fiction writer, editor, translator, and trainer for creative writing. Whoa, that's a long list. She started writing in 2004, before which she taught English literature, English language, and soft skills to students at Osmania University's affiliated and constituent colleges, from where she also got her doctorate in English literature. Her independent poetry collection, The Earthen Bowl, was awarded the Author of the Year of Award 2019 at NE8X Online Lit Fest. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Can I have the slides, please? Okay. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be with you all this evening and speak about something that I love so much, language, why we use it and how we use it. Thank you, Silray and its entire team for this lovely opportunity. Before I begin, though, I must admit that it was quite a challenge to sift through an ocean of knowledge and choose just those few droplets that might be of interest to all of you here. I hope I'm clear. I'm loud and clear.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. So language has a very important social purpose. Ever since mankind, or womankind for that matter, began to communicate, we have had this need. We're all social animals, and no experience can be felt or enjoyed in isolation. We feel a compelling need to share, and that's how we know of how communication could have started off maybe as sign language or mimicking the sounds in nature. We still have examples of these, in the present day English, and we call them onomatopoeic words, such as the hiss of a snake, the clang of metal, the cooing of a baby, and so on. We've also heard of and seen cave paintings, which is again early man's desire to communicate his experiences. And we have, the hieroglyphics in Egypt, which we know is the pictorial language, which is a combination of a script as well as images. Now, as the NEP has suggested, it is very important to expose our children to a variety of languages in their early years, simply because it shapes and strengthens their cognitive and analytical abilities.
I'm glad I heard so much.
Hello.
Okay, we have a number. You can call.
Okay. So, when you shift between languages, children are looking at the grammar, word order, sentence structure, and the words themselves. Maybe they will not know how, they may not know it as a literary person or a language expert, but automatically they are making these shifts, and it really helps them to, builds on their analytical skills. So that's very important for children, very young children, to have an exposure to several languages as much as they can come across. Next slide, please. Okay, when we talk of acquiring a language skill, what we are essentially looking at is the acquisition and assimilation of, oh my, I don't think this is the slide. Can you, no, this is, no. I don't think this is the presentation I sent across. Are you sure this is the one?
This is the latest one we have, Bona.
Oh, really? Because I had another one, those slides. Oh. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, okay, I'll just continue talking. Okay. Maybe without the slides.
Done.
Okay. So when you talk of, language skills, we are looking at basically two sets of skills, which is active skills and passive skills. We call speaking and writing as active skills, which requires inputs from us. And we call reading and listening as a passive skills, because something is just happening to us. We are taking information. We're not producing the sentences or the words. So when you learn a language, what you're actually doing is you're adding to your vocabulary, and any progress in your learning can be measured by how many words are there in as part of your everyday vocabulary. They say that, experts say that for the native speaker, he or she has about 40,000 words in their passive vocabulary and 20,000 words in your active vocabulary in there. So the more you shift from that to this, the more enriched and wonderful your language becomes and your communication becomes. So the whole exercise is to do this, to build on this. And and whatever people might say about the reasons for learning language, they may come across give you 10 different reasons. If you check Google, it'll come up with 10 different reasons. I see only two reasons. One is economic and one is integrative. So economic reasons are, I think, a very powerful reason. It is the reason why, it's a driving force between all our learning and all our study. We all dream of moving up the social ladder and the economic ladder. And that, I think, is the biggest driving force in all of our actions. But once in a way, once when you settle into a new city, or once you go into a new country and you kind of get used to that life and you start looking at the people around you and you want to integrate with those people, that's when you will want to learn the local language, learn it well, and then kind of integrate yourself into that society. So there are just two main reasons why we start pursuing languages. Although there are 4 skills like listening, reading that I talked about, speaking and writing, today I will focus this talk on just one area, which we call as speaking skills, because I think that's the most important. It's the most interesting part of English as well. It is different from our Indian languages, and that's why I wish to focus on this. So firstly, if you all know, even a child will tell you that there are 26 alphabets in English, but there are actually 44 sounds, which is broken up into, say, 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonant sounds. So this is the reason why there is so much of difference between the written word and the spoken word. In most Indian languages, there is a connection, one-to-one connection between the written letter and the sound that it leads to, except for a few small variations. Like, let us look at my language, Tamil, for example. The word car, word initially will always be car. But when it comes word medially, it will become ga. It will change to ga. But these are small variations like that. But English is much, much more different. Look at the sound represented by the letters C and H. When it is in chin, it is ch. When it comes in the word machine, it is sh. And in the word character, it becomes ka. So the same sound. So that's why it becomes, complex. It becomes really complex, and young children kind of struggle with learning the spellings of this language. Now, there's another additional complication. Yeah, this is what I was looking at. So thank you for this. Yeah. So if you look at the slide, there is if you look at it, the first one is stress. I want to talk to you a little bit about stress. In English, there is word stress and sentence stress. Let's look at the word stress first. Usually words, in a word, there is only one syllable that gets stressed. Now, there are monosyllabic words like O and A and all, there's no problem. But look at a word like, say, examination. In examination, it is one part of that word. Examination is maybe a 5-syllabic word, but the nay part of it is stressed. So this is very unique to English. And the whole point is that if you want to be understood internationally for the sake of international intelligibility, you need to understand this sound structure and stay with the accent and understand which part of the word the stress falls on and stay with that. But the same things, but if this word stress might slightly change in connected speech. Connected speech also has certain stresses. The stress is like, in connected speech, we will stress on maybe mostly the important main verb, the noun, the adjective, and the adverb. We don't stress on conjunctions. We don't stress on articles. We don't stress on these unimportant grammatical words that exist in the sentence to build the sentence. Because the idea is for the other person to just understand what you're saying. So you can say, I had bread and butter for breakfast. You say butter, bread, and breakfast is stressed. The rest I had, for, and all these things are not stressed. So this actually leads to the rhythm of English. That's why there is a kind of a musicality to the language, so which you will enjoy as you hear more. And it comes across in poetry as well. When we read poetry in a certain way, there's a rhythm with which you read it. So this is one aspect that I want to talk to you about, the stress and the rhythm of English. And also, very interestingly, just that if this is not enough, there's some more complication that I want to introduce. One other complication is there are certain words which work as nouns and adjectives and also as verbs. So the same word, the same spelling, but the pronunciation is different. So you say he's a convict. The person is a convict as a noun, but he was convicted of the crime. This is an object. But I objected to the problem. I objected to his whatever invasion or something like that. Or this is the produce of this ground, this village, or we produced a lot this year. Things like that. So the same word, but depending on how it's used, it changes. The pronunciation changes. And there's one more thing that I wish to talk about, and that the last one I will be talking about is tone. See, in written language, you can put a full stop and your audience will know it's a statement. You put a question mark, they'll know it's a question. You put an exclamation, they'll know it's you're either upset or you're excited, right? But how do you do that in speech? How do you speak differently so that your audiences, and the most important thing is people's attention spans are pretty low. And unless you do this tonality, changes in tone, people are going to sleep off and doze off. So you keep varying your tone from, soften, you slow down, you suddenly raise your voice, you do all these things. So the question mark is conveyed through a rising tone. The statements are conveyed through a falling tone. If you want to say a joke, why do people laugh? It's from your tone, you see? And why do, you want to be sarcastic. You don't want to say that someone is nice, but not so nice. You'll say she's wonderful. And then you stop there. People will know, you wish to say something without actually saying anything. So you can convey all of this to your tone. So that is why I've spent a lot of time on the spoken aspects of English. So I think we'll maybe out of time, and so I've not stressed upon other issues like grammar. I know children hate grammar, but there are very, very interesting ways to learn and understand grammar. Once you understand it, it's like it's beautiful if you actually have a good teacher teaching it to you, and vocabulary and punctuation. So because of lack of time, so that in a very brief nutshell are some of the aspects of English language teaching. It is a delightful language to learn and will take several years to master. Good luck to you all. Thank you. I'll take questions after Ms. Savita speaks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhuvaneshwari, and for the interesting pointers and aspects on English language learning. I mean, indeed, very interesting. And like you rightly said, yes, it takes years to master a language very well. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this evening and talk about the importance of learning new languages, international and foreign languages. Most people in the world speak more than one language. So this emphasizes the fact and shows that we are all naturally tuned towards bilingualism or multilingualism, where I think we can easily speak more than one language. Next slide, please. So they say, next slide, can we go to the next slide? So they say the limits of my language means the limits of my world. And a man who speaks two languages is actually worth two. A French proverb says this. One language sets you in a corridor for life, but two languages open every door along the way. A different language is like a different vision of life. Next one. So why learn a foreign language? Especially for students, there are a lot of job placements that are available. Most of the companies today have some business or the other to do with the rest of the world. So they prefer to hire people who speak more than one language. It gives you an edge in the interviews. When students put it up on the resume, it immediately sort of gives them an edge over the other candidates. Not only during the placements, but even during the career, during the work phase, there are a lot of growth opportunities within the organization when it comes to important positions and the overseas work and things like that. A lot of our students we have seen in the past many years sometimes easily command about 20 to 40%. And in some incidences where we have noticed it's almost double the salary than their peers who do not speak foreign languages. There are a lot of opportunities opening up, career opportunities in the field of languages. It could be trainers, translators, interpreters, content writers, language specialists are in great demand, especially in today's world where the entire world is one global village. There are a lot of opportunities abroad. It's not just during the travel or study, even for work, immigration, a lot of opportunities as well. And just by saying hola, bonjour, you are no longer a stranger. I mean, it opens up doors to you. Next one, please. Yeah, so apart from the economic career opportunities, there are a lot of other benefits. Research proves that the IQ of a person goes up when you start speaking, when you start learning new languages. When you learn a new language, new neural pathways are formed in the brain and it activates new cells, and it's like an exercise for the brain. It keeps you fit. So it boosts the brain power, improves the memory skills. And research also showed then when you start learning a language and when you become aware of the nuances of how a language works, you also improve your first language, or your English language skills or your other language skills also goes up. And your performance in other academic areas also improves. So this is one big reason why I think children are also naturally tuned to picking up languages easily just by listening and speaking and being in that environment. They easily pick it up. So I think children should be exposed to more languages, and it has a lot of benefits professionally, socially, psychologically, cognitive benefits. So it's very good for the mind, for the brain development, for the IQ, EQ of the child. And it really helps, for them to pick up languages as early in their life as possible. Next one, please. Apart from the academic and the social benefits, there are a lot of job opportunities like we looked in the first slide. So where are these opportunities? There are opportunities in the field of not just training, Our language specialists, translations, transcriptions, interpretations. Content writing is a big thing now in the SEO, branding, blogging, or as a YouTuber, podcaster, speaker. A lot of opportunities in the field of sales and marketing internationally, a research analyst, HR and recruitments, publishing industry, where most of the papers and books are published in multiple languages. Likewise, in entertainment industry, animation, most of the subtitling and most of the movies are all like now made in different languages. Tourism and aviation sector, most of the international organizations, UN, WHO, UNESCO, embassies have openings for people who speak foreign languages. Journalism and PR, or even in diplomatic services, government agencies, intelligence services are some of the areas where language specialists are in great demand. Next slide, please. So there are about more than 7,000 languages spoken globally. So which languages do we choose if a child wants to learn, or if anyone of us wants to learn a language? So which language do we pick it up? So the most widely spoken languages in terms of number of speakers is the top is the Mandarin or Chinese language, followed by English, Spanish, Hindi, Arabic, Bengali, Russian, Portuguese, Japanese, German, and French. This is mostly on the number of speakers speaking that language. Now, coming to the popular languages in terms of opportunities globally, the top languages are German, French, Spanish, Japanese, Mandarin, Korean, Italian, Dutch, Swedish, Russian. There are a lot of job opportunities available for people who speak German, French, and Spanish languages. So these are some of the top popular languages across for different people in India, for students looking for jobs, or going abroad for higher education, or looking at learning a new language. So I think these are the top languages that they can look at learning. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. So now coming to learning a language. So how do we, there are certain principles which are, I think, common across any language learning, whether it's English language or Indian language or one of the international languages. So how did we all learn our mother tongue? I think it was mostly by listening and speaking. Reading and writing came later. The grammar part of it, like most of us are not even aware of how a grammatical rules work. Like I speak Kannada and Telugu fluently, but I do not know any grammar in it at all. So one of the top ideas is it's like if it's an immersion method, or using the target language only, whether you're learning French or German or Spanish, instead of using the translation method, if you can start speaking in the language right from day one. That's one of the best ways to learn a language, because what happens is when it comes to translation, the sentence structure is not always the same. And that's where a lot of language errors, mistakes come into the picture. So it's always first is listening. We listened to how people spoke around us, and then we started speaking, and then came the reading, writing, and later the grammar part of it once we started going to school. So the same thing applies to learning any language at any stage. And also, rather than explanations, it's through examples that when we teach languages or when we are exposed to learning a language, it sort of registers and it's easier to learn. For example, if I say it's like, am I speaking? Will I continue to speak for some more time? So can we say speaking? Have I finished speaking? So can we say I spoke or spoken? So like this through examples, instead of saying present continuous tense and things like that, I think it's easier for people to learn through examples. And also learn through speaking. So that's why it's like in most of the language learning classes or wherever children are exposed to, are given opportunities where they can speak more. ISTT, or student talking time, and a lower teacher talking time. I think gives them a lot of opportunities for them to make mistakes, experiment, and then start speaking. I think one of the best and easiest ways to learn a language is only through speaking. Start speaking, make mistakes, correct, experiment, have variety in it, and continue refining and learning and improving. And one of the other most important aspect for teachers, educators, or for anyone students who are learning is ask questions rather than make statements. It's like when you ask a question, you need a response from the other person. So instead of saying, it could be anything. I mean, instead of saying this is a pen, it's used for writing, convert every statement into a question saying, Can we call it a pen? Can we use it for writing? Nod your head. There is a response that comes from the student. So it's very highly interactive. So this asking questions makes it much more easier, fun, interactive, and to learn a language. So for the educators, for the people who are teaching languages, I think if we can convert all statements into questions, that's a very, very powerful technique. So these are some of the ways where how we can learn a new language. And with this, I think, yeah, next slide, please. So foreign languages or international languages are the gateway to opportunities. There are a lot more opportunities opening up, a lot more students learning, taking up languages. And with the new national education policy, with the 3-language policy, the third language is sort of optional. I mean, the first language, they say, is any one of the regional languages, then the English language, and the third one is any one of the optional languages. So you can now select any of the foreign language or an Indian language, whichever language it is, whether it's an Indian or in international languages. I think learning languages is fun. Learning languages opens up doors. Learning languages has a lot of benefits, especially in today's world when we all keep hearing about the mental health and the well-being of a person. Both our mind and body are connected. So like the way we take care of our body, keeping it fit, healthy, it's like the mind also needs to be kept fit and healthy. So learning languages is one of the ways to keep our mind fit. Research has shown that we can push away the Alzheimer's, dementia, many other mental related, age-related problems when you keep our brain cells active. So go ahead, learn a language. Any language is fine, either Indian or an international languages. All the very best. And thanks, and open to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari and Ms. Savita, for your valuable ideas and thoughts. Absolutely, languages are indeed fun. So now let's open the floor for questions. Okay, so there's a question. Okay, so what role can language play in helping learners imagine the future?
Sorry, the role of languages in imagining?
Okay, so how does language help in making the learners imagine the future?
I didn't quite get this thing, but then language.
It was from Sherlyn Shiba. So Sherlyn, can you elaborate your question, please? Okay, so I think maybe we could, since Sherlyn is not responding, so
sure, we can move on to the next
one. Yes. So with learning happening digitally, children are getting limited opportunities to write on pen and paper. So is that important, do you think, ma'am? So yes. Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, ma'am, I think you're on mute. Okay.
Ma'am, you
should unmute me. Yeah. I couldn't unmute all this while. So what was the question again?
So with learning happening digitally, children are getting limited opportunities to write on pen and paper. So do you think this is important? Why or why not?
Okay, that's a very nice question. The point is that, when calculators entered the scene, when I was young, and then people said, oh my God, you should do mental math. But then now calculators are being taken into the exam hall itself. So I'm saying, as in the modern times, we are really running out of time. And whatever can save time is a great way to, live life. So all these time-saving devices, using a computer, using a dictaphone, using the dictation mode to write, all that is not going to hinder. It's only going to help. So I would not look upon any of these modern inventions as a hindrance. But the onus is on the person to want to learn, to improve themselves, read up. Those things are not going to change.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, ma'am. And one more question, because it is really very relevant, that children find languages less interesting than math and science. So how do we get them excited about languages?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Shall I answer, or Savita, you want to get into that?
You can answer and I'll add on to it.
Yeah, you'll add on. Okay. So yeah, that's a very good question. That's because I think even in schools, I think the teachers, the schools or colleges themselves don't focus on this. I know in my college, when I was teaching, the students would stay away out of the English classes. But the thing is, in a way, good, like those who aspire for higher education, there are luckily these entrance exams like IELTS or all these, these things to TOEFL and GRE, all of them focus on English. So the kids cannot, suddenly wake up when they finished engineering and then they want to crack the exams. They can't. It is a sustained attack right from school days where they keep on adding to their vocabulary because the preparations, the questions, the kind of questions that are asked in GRE and GMAT are pretty tough. So if they aim for a higher education and they have to focus and learn, that is the only what to say, the impetus or the reason that parents and teachers must stress the importance of learning languages, because they're not going to do it overnight. They can't mug up, overnight. It's just not possible.
Right. Right. Yeah. Maybe some of the other ways is like now people have access to a lot of digital entertainment. So a lot of movies, a lot of animation available in different languages. That's one way that we can encourage children to pick it up or make friends. I mean, now that everyone is connected digitally, virtually, if they can have friends or exposed to, like, for example, this conference itself is an international conference where there are speakers from different parts of the world. So if they can be connected, and even the school student exchange program exposes them to different languages, different friends, different cultures, travel, and different ways where we can encourage children to pick up languages, stay in touch, and make friends and read books. A lot of material, a lot of information available everywhere. I think parents, educators should encourage them and give them opportunities and give them exposure to all these available resources.
Yes.
Very interesting, ma'am. Now, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, and thank you, Savita. We have a couple of more questions from the audience. So we would.
Ma'am, you're on mute, Deepta, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just telling that we have a lot more questions from the audience. So we would take the answers from our speakers and we will keep the audience posted offline. Okay, then. So let's move on to the next event. Swimming is undoubtedly the best form of exercise for all age groups that keeps them emotionally and physically healthy. Student life is the age when one can learn a new skill easily without much effort. So why not consider learning swimming right from school life rather than keeping it aside for later? Swimming can be a great addition for a student life, and making it part of the school curriculum can offer incredible benefits. To explore more on this, we have with us the young and energetic Srihari Natraj, who is a national level swimming champion and an Olympic swimmer. Srihari has won 9 golds and 1 silver in the Senior National Aquatic Championships 2021 held in Bangalore. He has created 3 new meet records, becoming the fastest Indian swimmer. He was awarded the Eklavya Award in 2020, and he holds many other international medals to his credit. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, welcome.
It's great being on here. And yeah, so first, a little bit about myself. I'm Srihari, like you heard, and I'm born and brought up in based of Bangalore. I'm 20 years old, and I'm currently doing my BA in economics in Jain University. And yeah, so I've been swimming since the age of 2.5. So that's about 18 years that I've been doing this for. And I'm a sports enthusiast. So I grew up playing multiple sports and been following a lot of sports as well. And yes, sports has been a huge part of my life, not just swimming, any sport in general. I've always been excited to compete, to take part, to train, to watch other sporting events, because it's something that just gives me a lot of joy. And I would say it's one of the biggest parts of my life. And a little bit about my career would be that I was part of the Indian team in the Youth Olympics, the Asian Games, and the Commonwealth Games in 2018. I've participated in the World Championships in 2019 and the World Junior Championships in 2019. And I was part of the Tokyo Olympic team this year. And moving forward, the importance of sports is there's a lot of factors. For the biggest being about how it's the best way to stay healthy, to stay fit, and how that's going to help everybody towards the future. And other than that, sports at a very young age helps kids learn how to grow as a person. It's the only way to have a complete way of growth, social responsibility, social confidence, self-confidence, and things that which are easily taught in sports, discipline. And when you spend each and every day, or when you spend times in a playground or in the swimming pool, learning how to play a specific sport or training to get better in a sport, you're not just learning a skill, you're actually teaching yourself a lot more than that sport. For example, if you're in cricket, I come from a family of cricket, so I'm using cricket as an example. You're teaching yourself how to work with 11 other members, 10 other members on the team, and how to coordinate and how to work as one unit to get the best result. And that not only has benefits on the field. When you're done with your sports and then you go and work, you learn how to work with your team in a particular job. And that's something which I see a lot of people find it hard when they have no experience with working as a team in school growing up, because a lot of times in school it's just about trying to score the best marks, and that's all that matters. So you just sit, you study, right, and then sports is ignored. And I think that's been a huge mistake by a lot of schools. And so for me, how sports helped me was, one, it made me very competitive in a very healthy way. So for me, I like, it's not about, trying to beat person A or person B. For me, I like to be as perfect as possible, like in anything that I do. If I'm doing a race, or whether I'm cooking a dish, or writing my exams, it's for me trying to do the best that I can every single time I try to do something. And two, it's given me a lot of self-confidence and self-response and responsibility, and taught me how to deal with things that come up, that challenge us every day. And yes, sports has been challenging in India. We haven't received the same support as, for example, cricket. But it is a lot. There are a lot of times when there's a lot of support that's been given. And for example, I studied in Jain Heritage School in Bangalore, which is a sports school. And the best thing that they did, and I don't think other schools do in India, is we had sports every single day, 5 days a week for 2 hours. And now, if I look at all my seniors or my batchmates, some of them are still in sports and doing well. Some of them gave up sports and went into education or business or whatever, or music or whatever their passion was. And they've found a balance. And sports, in a way, and I've spoken to them, sports in a way has helped them figure out how to excel in other things as well. And they all feel that spending that 2 hours a day every day for 5-6 years growing up made a huge difference as to the person they are. And some of the challenges I faced, other than the support that we're given by the government or the media, were even though our school was a sports school, a lot of times teachers and parents, not my parents, but other parents, didn't really understand the importance of sports. And right now, the world is at a stage or at a point where sports actually plays a factor in how in recognizing how well the country is developed or how powerful they are. For example, and that's one of the reasons why the Olympics is so important for the USA or the or Russia or China, and they're all competing because they're all already at the top of the world at their at other fields, for example, like education and space exploration and things like that. And sports is the only thing that keeps changing. Like we all know who has the the best universities in the world, and it's not going to change for a long time. But sports things can change every day. So developing sports at a very young for the kids at a very young age also helps grow the country and the economy. And for me, yes, the most of the challenges that I faced were things like we weren't supported the best way, and we weren't given enough appreciation for what we're doing, and things like that. But other than that, I've had a pretty smooth career. My school is very supportive. My university is very supportive. The federation is very supportive. And one thing that everyone should do is you don't have to be in sports to compete or to win a medal for the country. Just spending that 1 hour a day or 45 minutes a day is going to help you become healthier, fitter. It's going to kickstart your system when you get up in the morning and go for a walk or a jog, and things like that will help you focus better in your particular job or if you're going to study. So a lot of time, a lot of coaches that I've spoken to and my coach have said this. There are a lot of swimmers who come to the pool and then before the exams they take a few weeks off, and usually the people who do the best are the ones who consistently try to manage both, and it shows about how much of a difference that actually makes in your life. Sports is going to help you how to focus, it's going to help you how to concentrate, it's going to boost your attention span, and it's also going to grow you're also going to grow and build relationships with people around the world or people around the country. And you can go and join a gym and you'll find 10 other people to communicate with and learn from, and you never know what you might learn, and there's the possibilities are limitless. So that's one thing that I've always felt about sports. And the biggest thing that I would tell to all the kids is, you just need to learn how, you just need to enjoy and you try to learn the skill, and try to, just have fun. And it's something that is, it's a process. It will take time, and it's not about winning or losing. It's just about, trying to get as well as good as you can. That's the only thing. You're only in control of what you do. And to what the thing that I wish a lot of schools and colleges would do is take up sports in a lot more serious way. And it's not, you just don't learn a sport and then it's not only about playing a sport. There are other careers that you can take from it. For example, you can get into physical education, you can get into exercise science, you can get into nutrition, you can get into strength and conditioning, and there are a lot of possibility things that you can achieve from that. And you can coach, and you can try to figure out ways to help athletes reach the next level. Sports has now become highly scientific. There are a lot of technology and scientific methods used to analyze performance and improve performance. And for someone who has a good knowledge on exercise science or on sports, and who has thing for science and education, they can come up with ways, theories as to how an athlete can get better, whether to improve that 1 second or to stay in the pitch a little longer and continue batting and help the team score more. And there's so many possibilities when it comes to what you can get a career out of in sports. And to sum it up, basically, for me, I feel that sports is an essential for everybody here, and it's not about winning. It's just making sure you get that few hours in, just to maintain that fitness, to have that drive, you spend every day walking for 45 minutes or half an hour in the morning, and then you wake up and then you go and do your job, and you're going to notice how much pressure, how much more excited you are to get it done. And at the end of the day, schools and colleges need to realize that it's something that will make a huge difference in people's lives. And even to all the parents out here and everywhere, they need to let their kids have a lot of fun in sports. Like usually when we go and play sports, we don't worry about who's winning, We just enjoy that 30, 45 minutes of fun that we get in school. And there will come a point where you know if you're serious or if you're not serious about it, and you know if you want to take it up as a career. And it's always good to take that risk.
Yes. So thank you so much, Srihari.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So from the time you got to know that you are coming on board, so you guys wanted to ask you one question. So can you go ahead and ask your question to Srihari?
Yeah, ma'am. So, Srihari, how did you practice during these COVID times?
I actually had a tough time compared to a few other swimmers who were trying to qualify for the Olympics. I had probably the toughest time training through COVID. One of them decided to move to Dubai and train there, and another one had access to a school pool. So I actually did not train for 6 months in a swimming pool. I'm very grateful that the Olympics was postponed by a year. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it. Yeah, so I was just trying to work out on land and with some weights at home with whatever I had, just trying to keep myself fit. And once the lockdown eased up a bit, I would go down to one of my friend's house, and we would spend time jogging around the apartment or playing cricket or playing tennis, just to maintain that fitness and conditioning. But I didn't really get to swim for about 6 months.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Srihari, for being with
No
us
problem.
today and sharing your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So now we can open the floor for questions.
Okay, so what are your future goals with regards to swimming? So, Srihari, I think there was a question for you. So, what are your future goals with regards to swimming? It's from one of our audience.
Yeah. So to answer that quickly, the big goal is the big dream is and to make it at the Olympics and try to win a medal over there. There are a lot of smaller goals and things that I want to achieve through the next few years, like an Asian Games medal and a Commonwealth Games medal. But the ultimate one is the Olympic.
Okay. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Srihari.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So next, next we move on to our session on takeaways on education with Mr. Venkatraman RC.
Mr. Venkatraman is the host of the podcast College Matters, Alma Matters. His mission is to make college information accessible to the hundreds of millions of high school students worldwide. He is an IIT Madras graduate and holds a master's in computer science from Iowa State University, Ames, Iowa. After working at HP and Apple, he founded technology companies and shepherded them through all the various stages of development. He is also an author of US patents. Welcome, sir.
Hi, glad to be here.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be at this conference. I've just feel like I'm following a whole host of experts and almost luminaries. So I'm just a podcaster trying to listen to people's stories and try to interpret them, or not even interpret them, just convey it to all of you. And what I hope to do today is talk a little bit about what I've learned through those conversations. So if we are ready, I can kick into the presentation and go from there.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And it's just a little bit of a time delay here. So let me hopefully get there. So yeah, and you can click on next so you can fill out the slide. So basically, like I just said, I'm not an education expert. In fact, the only thing I've ever done is gone to school and college as part of education. So don't get your hopes up. I'm going to tell you what other people are saying, and hopefully that is of value to you, all of you. So let's go to the next slide. And I kind of want to do a poll with this next slide. Want to get what the participants think is education. How do you see education? Just one choice. Do we have a
We are still getting responses.
okay, cool. Do you want me to continue, or should I just let me just wait? Let me wait on this one. I don't think that's that difficult a question, I hope. Okay, cool. Interesting. Scholarly endeavor, something to get through. Vocational pursuit. Very well. I feel sorry for the 6% who said they have no idea. Okay, so let's go to the next slide and I'll give you my take. I mean, I think I agree that it's probably a combination of all those things. But if we can go to the next slide. Okay. So basically, I think education is, sort of like being on autopilot. We all do these things because everybody does it. And, through thick and thin, we continue to do it. But I think there's only one reason we all do it. If you can click, please. It's because we think that it's our ticket to a bright future. And that's fundamentally what I think education is. And I think that is true for hundreds of millions of middle class families across the world. So, so basically, what I want to do is, before I kind of jump into the podcast and college and talk about the learnings, I wanted to kind of find out how many of you listen to podcasts. It's just would be nice to see how many of you have gotten onto this medium. So while that is playing, we can go to the next slide. I can continue, and then we can see what people, what the distribution is like. Okay, so let's stay there for a second. So I do a podcast, something that I started about a year and a half ago. It's called College Matters, Alma Matters. And essentially, it's chronicling college stories from college alumni, faculty, and all, and different folks that, wow, it's half and half. So maybe the folks who don't listen to podcasts maybe can start with this one. So what I've done is, over talking to alumni from a lot of the top colleges around in the US, um, talk about their college experience. It's a pretty comprehensive podcast. Each episode is roughly 40 to 50 minutes. And I talk to faculty about their areas of expertise. I've got educators, I've got experts. And the fundamental idea is, how do we communicate what college is about, what the opportunities are, and what the experiences are to high schoolers out there, so that we can not just inform them, but hopefully inspire them. And as part of this, over the year and a half, next click, please. We've done, upwards of 150 episodes. We've been listened to in a number of countries, and we've sort of had a fair number of listens. So, pretty happy um, with the audience that we're getting and the reach that we have. If you can click, please. Great. So one of the things I always ask the alumni is, they spend 4 years in college. What is it that they would have liked to have done if they can go back and redo it? And I thought it might be a good idea for you to guess what might be the top thing that people wanted to do if they could go back to college and spend the 4 years all over again. And it is kind of surprising what you find. Next click, please. And the number one thing that most of them, a lot of them, would have liked to have done is to have taken more courses. And just to give you next slide, please. And just to give you some context, this is one of three things that they would have liked to have done. Obviously taken more courses, but also less of a GPA fixation, right? And that is probably explains one, because people are so scared that they might get a poor grade that they don't experiment, they don't take the classes that they think they ought to, or try to challenge themselves. And also a higher involvement on campus. I mean, that's where all connections are made. That's where lots of future careers are done. And well, I'm just seeing the poll is very interesting. Over half the people said that more than they would have taken more courses. And I think that is very interesting and symptomatic, and also tells us a little bit about how we view education, much more of a number, a score, a GPA, rather than sort of this whole prospect of learning. So what I thought I would do is give you sort of 5 takeaways that I think are worthy of teaching our youngsters or high schoolers that I've learned from these podcasts. So next slide, please. Okay, so these 5 things, I'll get into them in a minute, but one is how to explore problem solving, interdisciplinary or multidiscipline things. I'm calling it Majors 101. I'll tell you what that is, and learn to learn. And I believe all these are skills or practice or disciplines that are eminently teachable and learnable. And something that I feel that if we include it as part of an early education, or it's a lifelong learning kind of thing, and a lifelong a skill that I think would be of great benefit. So before we do that, I want to set the context to tell you where I see this fitting in. So next slide, please. And we always, this is just in the context of education as such. I kind of view courses and skills, and the 3 skills are the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and we have different levels of education. And into that, if I may be immodest enough to say that we probably need some basic plus skills. Next click, please. Where we could include the 5 takeaways, and those could be something that I think cuts across all the different sort of levels of education that we go through. Maybe not elementary school, but after that. So I want to kind of jump into each one of these, give you a quick idea of what I'm talking about, and then we can sort of talk about it at the end. So next slide, please. Okay, so the first one is explore, how to explore. And I'm going to motivate each one of these with some small vignettes from my podcast and then my 2 cents on what you might be able to do about it. So the first one is an example of a graduate of University of Pittsburgh who went into college not quite knowing what she wanted to study. And her whole experience at exploring different majors was by trying out different topics and subjects over the first 2 years. And through that process, settled on economics and psychology and thought that that would be something that would be very beneficial in working at startups and things of that kind. The second example is about a girl, Lydia, who went to Notre Dame and who was into dementia and Alzheimer's research. And she went to Denmark to visit the villages. She spent about a week there and studying how the folks with dementia actually lived in these village models, right? And the third one is a alum named Tushar who graduated from Iowa State University. And what he did was, in his first couple of years in college, he went to every career fair that was out there, just so that he could talk to potential employers, learn about what they're looking for, and also get more comfortable talking to them. So he used that approach to kind of figure out what kind of skills people are looking for, and use that ultimately in sort of landing a job. And I bring all these up because these are different things to explore. We explore all the way from, what is the best place for Chinese food to picking colleges and picking careers. And each of these requires some level of framework and structure. So my first thought is that we should set up some techniques and tools that create some framework for people to try out and to teach this so that they can follow certain techniques and for certain methodologies to work on these, for some of the important things. And you can think of that in every aspect of your life in terms of exploring. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next one is problem solving. And this is a very hot topic. Almost everybody keeps talking about this. And the interesting thing is that it requires some amount of training. So I talked to a professor of physics at University of Wisconsin about what it takes to study physics. And one of the things he talked about, one of the skills is what he called abstraction, the ability to kind of ignore a whole bunch of things so that you could solve a problem. If you look at Newton's laws, you say assume there's no friction and the body can move forever. And the ability to be to cut out all that sort of stuff and be able to explain a behavior, that is one methodology or one technique or one important aspect. Another one is about in a innovation hub at Davidson College, there was a student who heard about the problem that a healthcare consultant was having, collecting information from their different clients, and they came in all sorts of forms, email and PowerPoints and whatnot. And so the student built a Shiny app to kind of put all these things together so that all the data could be extracted in some sort of a uniform way and provide a visualization of that data. So, there was taking a problem and solving it from an entrepreneurial point of view. And the last one I want to kind of highlight is the thing that we are going through, the whole pandemic. It has been a case of evolving symptoms, understanding as the pieces of the puzzle came together, the diagnosis got better and better in terms of what caused the spread, how do we solve the problem, how do we cure people. And so we have to be able to deal with problems at different levels, right? So Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? I'm not quite done. And so the, sorry, thank you. And so I think the important thing there is really figuring out how to isolate the problem, what kind of simulation you can do, and how to create the best solutions. How do you test for it? So these are things that I believe need to be taught and somewhat in some sort of framework or rubric kind of manner. Next slide, please. The next one is really about multidisciplines. Now, this is a mantra for all kinds of entrepreneurial and innovative activities today. Um, you know, it's we don't live in silos. We're all, once we get out into the real world from college, we're dealing with cross-functional, cross-group issues. But what's more important is that the student at Swarthmore, who's studying engineering and peace conflict, is devising something called peace engineering, where he's taking engineering principles and trying to apply it to, to global peace. And that is an example of something that is happening across disciplines. Or this professor at Iowa State, Professor Dipali Sashital, who's a biochemist, but got into plant science and animal science, and has now sort of heavily working in the bioengineering, crop bioengineering group. So again, being in the university and proximity to different disciplines sort of allowed her to do that. And there is Professor Nikhil Dutt at UC Irvine, who's creating this computational self-awareness system, which is, computer science with sort of the ability to react and respond to the environment, which sort of is a combination of biology and cognitive science. So these kind of things become possible. But in order to do that, you have to be exposed to multiple disciplines as long as you can, and not stop, at grade 12 or first year of college. And we kind of need to also create environments and disciplines to do that. How to mix and match, what makes sense, how do you do deeper immersion in one versus the other? Is there a sequence? What are the core building blocks, and how do you sort of keep up with the changing environment? So this is the third aspect that I would encourage you all to think about. Next slide, please. So the next one, I called it Majors 101. So one of the things that I heard from lots of students and alumni is that when they are in high school, they know of the common majors: physics, chemistry, engineering, medicine. But there's a world of topics out there that students have very little exposure or knowledge of, right? So for example, in biochemistry, going back to Professor Sasital again, biochemistry isn't taught in college till the third year, really, of junior year of college. So she advanced it at her university to start at year one. But really, high schoolers have really very little idea of what a biochemist does, or what biochemistry is. Similarly, there's this student of Brown, who's now an alum, Mike, who went into a pre-med program. He actually finished Brown with pre-med program, but in the last semester, he encountered a course in management of organizations, sort of like a business course. And guess what? He didn't go to med school. He decided to go pursue business. And then there was this math major. She thought she really wanted, Anna from Johns Hopkins, wanted to study math. The first year, she finds out that math is really hard, and that's not really what she wanted to do. And then she worked at, funnily enough, the New York mayor's office, and discovered data analytics, and decided to graduate with applied math. So the point here is that a lot of these exposures don't happen because you don't have the opportunity. But if you had a better feel, which is what my suggestion is, introduction to these academic fields, a survey, ability to explore, maybe some trials, testing out whether it's for you, and some methodologies to sort of go into college with maybe a set of things that you want to explore. might make it more beneficial and also more efficient. And then that brings me to the next slide, please. The last of the takeaways, which I call just simply learn to learn. I mean, we all know things change fast. When I was in college, people were fighting over what major that they wanted to have, mechanical or electronics in those days. And frankly, it didn't matter. Um, 10 years later, everyone was in my case, in our case, in computers. And so the most important thing is, how do you learn? How do you learn new things? And so, like this Connor who went to Harvard, majored in linguistics, but then started working with VCs and to product management. Or Narayan who studied engineering at Columbia and then now is shaping energy policy with the Biden administration. Or Anna Lee who studied sociology, but in her final year decided that she really wanted to be a pastry chef. So really what you need is, obviously you have to study, you have to use learning as a process to figure out how to learn. And that, I think, is the last thing I would say here. So with that, let's jump to the next slide and do a quick poll. And out of these 5 things, which one do you think ranks number 1? What would be your top choice? Oh. Okay, so from the poll, how to explore got the top score from the group. The next one was learn to learn. So that's sort of very interesting. I think I probably would agree with that. Um, so let's go. So the next slide. So there's obviously a lot of stuff that one can talk about here. I just decided to stick to these points, but I'm planning to create an annotated version of this with more of the case studies and stories. So if you're interested in that, um, share your email address and I'll provide it when it's ready. Okay, so okay, great. A lot of you seem to want it. I'll be very happy to provide that. So that concludes whatever my official slides part of it is. If there are questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Here's a question for you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fatima Thaskin says, with organizations like Coursera, edX becoming more prevalent, are students still considering moving to the US for higher education as a high advantage?
At the end of the day, I think yes. The answer is still yes. Um, I think the challenge, there are lots of reasons why people, pick colleges the way they do, and a pretty high up in the whole equation is a certain level of credibility or brand and things of that nature. And I think that's still a big driving force. I see all these online possibilities as addendums, right? They are nice ways to extend and continue to learn. But I think for what they might consider fundamental or basic education, higher education, I mean, they would want to go to college. I'm not sure that US is necessarily the only place, but that would be my that's what I would believe. Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time today.
sure thing.
Thank you, sir. So,
Now, let's move on to our next event, Future Forward Higher Education. To elaborate more on this topic, we have with us Mr. Rajesh Kumar, who is a serial entrepreneur and he has co-founded multiple edtech ventures that offer a range of services from work integrated degree programs to aspiring students by partnering with leading universities and tech enterprises to career development solutions to graduating students.
all his ventures put together enable over 1 million students every year on their journey towards better jobs and careers. He devotes his free time to mentoring edtech startups. He is an alumnus of IIM Kozhikode and PSG College of Technology, and he is a recipient of Distinguished Alumnus Award from both his alma maters. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Deepa, and you appreciate. Unlike the previous speaker, I don't have a lot of slides. I'll rather like say keep it free flowing. And thank you so much for having me here. Indeed a pleasure. Thanks, Ananthi. Thanks, Rama, for setting me up for the team at Silray. I'll keep it super brief. The topic that I've taken is future forwarding higher education. I'm sure all of us are aware about the whole national education policy playing out various connotations to what it means to each one of us. My understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, in the audience, we have students, parents from both India and international, and I'll probably keep it as broad-based and wide as possible. And in the interest of having a more conversational session, I'll take the first 7, 10, 12-minute stops to like say share a few ideas about what I believe is the future of higher education going to be. So I graduated 2004, and today 2021, 22, if you look at it, the construct of higher education hasn't changed even one bit. It's still the same. For most parts, we still have foundational aspects happening in the first year of study, and then second year, slowly you progress on to more meaningful stuff. And final year, if you're a 3-year program or a 4-year program, you end up supposedly getting more specialized. That's in a utopian world. But for most of us who are currently either undergoing undergraduation or post-graduation, or who recently graduated, or if you have elder siblings, if you have students in school, that is, I'm sure they can relate to what I'm going to say. 99 out of 100 times, the way college education plays out is not exactly what we anticipated to be. More often than not, we expect that we are provided with a lot of skills, we get a lot of exposure, and which will eventually help us become maybe job ready or employable, or in that sense become more economically gainful. But report after report, survey after survey, at least in an Indian context, if you look at it, there is a very, very low percentage of students who every report calls out as employable or job ready or ready to face whatever the ecosystem want to throw. And if you go back to understand why that is the case, what fundamentally happens in a college education is completely cut out from what really is expected by the industry or the real society out there. There's no problem per se with the curriculum if you really strictly speak about it, right? But more often than not, it's so much more a function and combination of how curriculum plays out, how the teaching pedagogy is, and how experiences get shaped, all of those things. Now, the reason why we're speaking about how the whole title also is also relevant in that sense, where we're talking about future forwarding higher education, right? This is what the current situation is. For most parts, higher education seems to be very irrelevant. It's almost as though, like the previous speaker was asking, what would you go back and do in your, if you had to do your college? More often, a lot of people spoke about how they would have more fun and all of those things. Right? Similar is what more or less seem to be playing out there. So, what should higher education mean? Effectively, higher education is supposed to be the pathway or the gateway for any individual to become self-reliant, stand on his own 2 feet, be economically productive, fend for themselves from a job perspective or social security perspective, all of those things, irrespective of what stream of study that you take. But unfortunately, the systems don't seem to be like, say, making that outcome happen at all. And after a lot of research, our own personal experience of running each of these businesses, where we support students, university students, early career employees, and all of those things, the biggest missing piece is the context in which anybody learns whatever that it is. In a society like India, more often than not, even today, the choice of college education is largely driven by not the student in most parts. While today, at least lately, a lot of students do have a lot of say in terms of what they want to learn and all of those things. But 8 out of 10 times, it's somebody else who decides for on behalf of the student. That's a really bad, unfortunate thing, and it reflects in how students' attitude is when they go into college. If you're a student, you will relate to what I'm talking about. I have this very favorite anecdote that I give. Education, more often than not, happens to be an accident in most of our cases. The first probable accident happens when you finish grade 10. If you have a good grade, then you probably end up taking science group, so on and so forth. If you have a not so great grade, probably your school decides what you want to study and all of those things. You really don't get so much of a choice. Grade 12 is another probable accident, depending on if you're from southern part of the country and if you have reasonably good marks, you end up going to engineering colleges. If you don't have great marks, then you probably end up getting bucketed into maybe not with all due respect to each of these programs, right? That's unfortunately, fortunately, how things seem to be playing out. For most parts, what we have observed is choices around career, choices around studies are probable accidents. The trouble with accidents is that you really don't control the outcomes. And that's what's the reality, what we're also seeing, right? Students end up being not very excited about college, except the fun elements of going to college. Outcomes are also very suspect. They don't get great marks or they don't get enough skills, so on and so forth. So all of us understand the situation. This is what is playing out. Somebody had to call out. I'm just setting the context in terms of calling out what the whole situation currently is. Now, what do we anticipate the future of higher education to be? One, and with national education policy. So a very super synopsis of what NEP is talking about. National education policy is actually talking about modularizing degree program to such a large extent that you don't really have to be stuck to one university or college. The relevance of education will be completely redefined if NEP gets implemented in the exact same way and format that it's been proposed. I'll give you a couple of very interesting insights about what NEP says. NEP recommends that students should not be stuck to a university or college for 3 or 4 years of studies. Just imagine if you can choose one subject from university 1 or college 1, second subject from university 2 or university 3, so on and so forth. That's how liberal NEP is in its draft format. It is also putting a lot of onus on universities and colleges to make the education very meaningful and relevant, which is not the case. I'm sure all of us on this conversation can concur with me when I say that. So much so that if you have 40 credits, which is roughly equivalent of 10 or 12 subjects in 1 year or longer, you will potentially earn a certificate. So at the end of first year of study, the way it is in today's context, you could potentially earn a certificate. At the end of second year, when you accumulate 80 credits, this is irrespective of what stream, engineering, sciences, arts, doesn't matter. It's for all of those things. 80 credits, you get a diploma. 120 credits, you get a degree. 160 credits, you get an honors degree. At about, so if you do a honors degree, you could do 1 year master's degree. That's how progressive national education policy is. For all the naysayers about how our ecosystem is, at least from a policy level, there is a lot of goodwill and intent in terms of how this wants to be. Now, as an ecosystem, if you have to capitalize on what it's intended to be and if you have to play it out, the buck is still with the consumers, students. If you can start going and like, really heckling whichever university or college that we take admission to, actually adopt this NEP in some sense, and also really expect outcomes to be delivered, not just be silent spectators to whatever gets peddled off as undergraduate education. Today, I'm sure, without exception, parents, students alike, all we have is only anxiety when it comes to getting an admission in a good college. The last of all, we'll want to even go and question some authority in a good college or a university saying that NEP is saying this. Or okay, let me flip the whole thing. When was the last time we went to a college and asked, okay, I'm not happy with what education you're providing. Can you do one better? When is the last time, if all of us as students, many of us would have been students, would have gone and told the professor that, look, dude, what you're saying is not making sense. I'll rather want a refund for the course that I fees that I paid. It's not practical, is what we always almost ended up giving in, right? I think about time we started revisiting those choices. In a restaurant, if you don't like the food, we kind of create such a huge hue and cry. We write about it on social media and do all of those things. But education, higher education in particular, which is like the ultimate or the last stage for us to launch ourselves in the world, we seem to be putting up with all sorts of nonsense that get peddled. Right? It's not okay. Obviously, the ecosystem is getting more and more better for this whole change. I think it's about time we also made use of this opportunity so that we are able to make the most of the policy level constructing changes that is playing out in the country. Mindful of time, questions, yes, let's shoot.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It was an eye-opener for many of us. And now let's open the floor for questions.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, since you have mentored many edtech startups, what do you think is the biggest challenge? Also, what kind of support is available?
So any startup needs one or two very important things. One, they need to be able to like put a product together. Two, they need to be able to acquire customers. More often than not, when I meet startup founders, they're either very, very passionate product folks who are very far away from what the customer wants, and they kind of get stuck with that. They have this whole founders syndrome, founders bias about the product being world class, and they're so far out from what the customer expects. Whether it's an edtech startup or any startup for that matter, we exist only because there is a customer. If entrepreneurs and founders are able to like say relate and rally to that, I think everything is sorted for them, if you ask me.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time, and thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Had a great time.
Yeah.
Let's now find out what were your takeaways from the sessions we had so far. Please click on the link in the chat box and answer the questions. Question 1. What sustainability ideas will you need in your life? Quite interesting. Most people are saying that they will reduce.
Okay, great. Okay, now are you ready for the second question? if we need to build an all-inclusive school and take Hogwarts as a worthy example, what are inclusive features can we take from there? Okay. Okay, Dumbledore. Okay, so how does Hogwarts cater to inclusivity is what we are looking at.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Yes.
Inclusive education, architecture, and accessibility in language. Absolutely. We have a timer. Yes. Yes, there was
Sports, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also very, needed feature.
Equal opportunities, inclusive education, and yeah, inclusivity in terms of different countries, species. So great. Yeah, thank you guys. Yes. Can you go ahead?
And the last question for the day, you guys will be answering. Please put strongly agree or strongly disagree or any of the medium options in this rankings below.
Yeah, we agree that wide range of topics were covered. We all gain new perspectives and insights, absolutely.
Oh, and Team Children has done a great job. Wow, it's made our day.
Yay. Yes. Looking forward to learning more about these topics. Absolutely. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being so patient and thank you for being so interactive.
Truly, thank you all.
Okay.
And thank you so much to the speakers for once again, thank you so much for attending and sharing all your valuable ideas.
Yes. So this was a beautiful evening so far, and we had quite a few amazing sessions and great insights. Now is the time for interactions. We will be having our speakers for the evening in separate breakout rooms. So the audience get.
Ma'am, I think you got muted all of a sudden.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. Can you hear me
We
now?
will
Yeah.
have the interactions
now,
here in
yes?
the main room itself.
Okay.
We'll have the interactions with Bhuvneshwari, Dr. Bhuvneshwari, Dr. Savita Reddy, and also Gauri. Please, whatever questions you have, the floor is open now to the audience. Please go ahead with your questions. Can we spotlight the speakers for the day and unmute them? I have a question. What's your take on NEP's 3-language policy? I think that's either to Savita Reddy or Dr. Bhuvneshwari.
I can answer, maybe I can answer. So I think it makes sense till maybe grade 5 or something, because even as a child, I studied 3 languages when I was up to grade 5. I studied Sanskrit, Tamil, and English. But after grade 5, I think there's a greater stress on improving sciences and mathematics, and children do get stressed, I think, with other subjects, and therefore it may not make much sense beyond grade 5. But of course, that's my personal opinion. I'm sure there are other opinions as well that exist. So this is my opinion, that's all.
Right. I think, yeah, I mean, it's good that languages are reintroduced. I mean, like Bhuvneshwari rightly said, we all studied 3 languages. And now, again, 3 languages, the regional language and an optional choice of a language and English languages, I think will bring back the focus on learning languages and with multiple advantages. So I think it's good that, I mean, in the early stages that they're exposed to multiple languages.
I think Prema is sharing a comment saying that we could see that children with hearing impairment face challenges in learning languages. And what are some ways to make it easier for them?
I'm sorry, I don't have any expertise on this area. I've not, explored this much. I think I should read up and come back. So, unfortunately, I've not taught children with this background.
Right. Yeah, I think in today's world, there are children and people from all different backgrounds. And I was very impressed to see the sign language expert here. So maybe for as educators, if the entire education can be made inclusive, taken into account people from different backgrounds, different needs and things like that, and introduce mechanisms where it's friendly for them to pick up languages or communicate in whatever ways. So that would really help. And as educators, I think we shouldn't focus mainly on the main population, but bring in to focus all other sects of people and see what their special needs are and try and bring about this entire educative process to include that in whatever child-friendly way or learn in a friendly learning way. It would really help bring in together everyone and not let them out of it.
Great.
And Gauri ma'am, what do you hope to achieve through SILRE in the future? Any projects that you have in mind?
Yeah, so as I said in my speech, we found a methodology as we grew up. So right now we are in a place where we are able to make an impact on children. They are able to learn the techniques. The learning to learn has been the cell of SILRE, the core thought. Learning to learn, it's just not a subject or taught as something that you have to learn or something. So how do I learn to learn any topic? So taking that thought forward would be keeping the learner's confidence intact and his exploratory mindset intact, complete respect for the learner, probably as all these speakers inspired in us. There are multiple careers in this world. Even Sri Hari, all these speakers spoke about multiple careers. So you know what, I would like to just take a child forward and probably pick up children with passion in different subjects, take them and take them forward in their career path, maybe as early as 10 years old. Sit with them and find out their passion and bring that up. Sometime back only I learned, my second son was saying that, Ma, I'm really good in finding out the notes. Whatever the notes is able to find out, which is a rare thing, essentially. As the song is played, is able to find out the notes that are being played, which I had not recognized. So I just thought then it came to my had this thought that every child has a very specialized skill intact. So if you can discover it, nurture it, and give that the environment very early, I think that would be great for me. I would love it. Yeah.
Thank you, Gauri ma'am. So the next is to Savita ma'am. So what is the role in the era with tools like Google Translate offering live translation? So how do you think is the role of a foreign language learning?
Oh yeah, with the technology available now, there are a lot more tools available for people, and Google Translations is available, which makes most of the work easier, and smaller translations can be made use of by the technology. But having said that, still there is a need for live translations, people related translation, mainly because technology cannot solve everything. The technology doesn't understand the context of the language. It translates directly. Like this morning on Facebook or someplace, I was just reading a post. It said Shilpi. Shilpi is name of a person, but the technology directly translated it to an artist. It's not the right this one. So technology helps us. At the same time, we cannot depend on it 100% of the time, all the time. So there is still role for human translation. It has to be a complete blend of both.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
And to add to that, I think the technology is still in its infancy. It's not, fully developed. The potential is there. So therefore, in the future, if you saw the film Matrix, for example, they implant a chip in the head and people can start speaking languages. So there are immense possibilities that can happen. Right now, that's not possible. And one more thing I wanted to say is even like these grammar tools that Microsoft Word has, for example, it corrects your grammar. It's very good. But let's assume you want to put the word area. Instead of that, you type arena or vice versa, because area and arena are correct words. It will not underline it, and it won't help you. And when you read your own work, you get so saturated that you may send it off and it can cause problems. So all these tools are still in their infancy. Yeah.
Very true, ma'am. So there is one more question. So due to this pandemic and online learning, the attitude of children has changed a lot towards what is learning, what is a classroom, and who is a teacher. So how this can be changed as children are returning to school? Any ideas?
I think, yeah, I mean, the concept of the entire online school, many children, parents were not really used to it. All of a sudden, they were forced into it. And somehow, I think everyone adopted to it. Now, again, going back to the school, there is again a little bit of a challenge there, because having used to it for more than a year, children, teachers are all finding it difficult. Again, there is a little bit of uncertainty whether it's going to continue or not, is a third wave coming or not, and things like that. And the role of the teacher and the student has all changed. So this is where maybe as educators, being in more communication, more training, being more understanding of what the children are going through in these situations, and being very supportive and helping them and training them, might bring down those gaps in the education and bring down those confusions that the children, in general, everyone is going through a lot of confusion. So the only thing is more of communication, reduce those gaps, keep in touch with people, explain them what's happening. And I think this should reduce the gaps.
So, and to add to that, see, as I said initially, language is all about communication and about people. We are all social beings. So the minute, people have been so isolated right now, I'm sure they'll be very happy to go back to school. And then the teacher front, and at least for language teaching, the teacher's role is indispensable. And then there is also peer reviewing, to show off in front of your friends, to get appreciated. So automatically the zest will come back, the zing will come back into it. And I'm sure children will start enjoy. I'm sure they missed it in all these, years, months of isolation. And I think once that comes back, the joy of being, so we're all social beings. I'm sure they'll enjoy that social interaction and it'll all come back.
Quite true. Actually, lots of my classmates are raring to get back to school.
Yeah. I think blended
So
learning
that's
is here to stay. Blended learning, I think that will be the next topic for the next day. That is going to be there.
Mix
Children
of
are going
both.
to adapt. Yeah, going to adapt offline and online. That's already become their. They've adapted to it now, so that's here to stay, I think.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. Best of both the worlds. So
yeah, and one more thing when you
absolutely.
said, "Na future of Silre," I was just thinking in one of the speeches I heard that Beatles, no, they asked Paul, did his teacher recognize his talent? So he said no. And Harrison was also the same school. And did you when you compared with him? He said no. Was he encouraged? No. So the person, the speaker is asking, you had half the Beatles in your classroom and you didn't even know it. So something like this. I mean, I just heard in a speech. I was just thinking, there's so much to discover in a children's skill and encourage them. We just have to just support them. We don't have to do much and not disturb them. That's what I wanted to say when somebody asked, what's your future goal for children? Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Savita, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, and thank
Can
you,
we,
ma'am.
can we take some feedback and thoughts from the audience as well about today's session? Can we have a couple of them share your thoughts on the session today? Please raise your hands and we will unmute you. Sure, you've all been a very patient audience and we would love to hear your thoughts. It'll be great even if you can put it in the chat also, but we would love to hear your thoughts as well. Please raise your hand so we can unmute you. Padma ma'am, would you like to share your thoughts?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, it was a very good journey throughout these 3 hours, and like got stuck to the screen listening to so many speakers over here. And starting from the last, I think, as she said, languages are also more interesting, and we should, create a kind of the interest to be kindled in the students to enjoy learning the languages, because as you said, children get absent in the classroom, they disappear when the language classes are going on. Moreover, I just want to quote here one point which Aki told, if I'm not wrong in the pronunciation. She said that 1% reservation that was given for the education for the transgender people. She was very right when she said that we are very happy that some kind of a reservation is happening for us and all that, but we miss out on this point where on the other hand, it is that isolating them again, that it is not bringing them up, but it is getting isolated from the thing, that again we are separating them, isolating them as they remain as isolated gender only. It's just a percentage that is announced, that's all. So these small things we need to also think when something is done to uplift somebody, we are losing out on something else. And sometimes we feel that this uplifting is not happening at all. This just stays there over there, and we feel something has happened, some change has come in. But yeah, we need to see actually whether it is really bringing in the impact what we are trying to say. That's what I wanted to say. And all thanks to all the speakers. It was very interesting, very fascinating to know many things. Today I had made a lot of notes in my paper so that I can follow it when I teach my kids. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Anandi ma'am. Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am, for
Thank
attending.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Sharing your thoughts also.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my, this was one great, informative, and fun evening.
Spot on, Yug. We are sure you guys would have enjoyed this as much as we did. So thank you, Silri, for such a wonderful initiative. And thanks to all our speakers for the valuable time and efforts. And last but not least, thank you, audience. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to pull this off. Also, we would like to thank all our sponsors and partners, well-wishers and participants. Yes.
We are now wrapping up an eventful day one, and we look forward to an eventful day two as well. Please have a look at our amazing events for tomorrow and make sure not to miss them. You can also check out the agenda from our website. See you all tomorrow. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you,
guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Leave meeting or anything?
I got